Welcome to episode 1 of the Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast. Today we just wanted to introduce ourselves by sharing our top 5 games that really demonstrate the range of our taste when it comes to games. Later we'll be testing everyone's knowledge on flavor text, but first, these are just a few of the games we've been playing lately. I'm your host, Paul.
And I'm David.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Joss.
This game, I actually just learned Tiletum? I'm totally saying that wrong. At the time of recording, the game isn't quite out on the shelves yet. By the time this show drops, I'm sure it'll be available for sale. It's designer Simone Luciani and Danielle Toscani, published by Board and Dice.
Yeah, I'm sure that's correct.
You pronounced those names wrong also, by the way.
For America, it's very correct.
Yeah. Very likely not correct. This is a 1 to 4 player game, and I really liked it. It's sort of this weird combo building game. I thought, Josh, you'd really like it too.
Yeah, and it comes with fries and a drink. I love the combos.
Basically, it's like you have a set of actions, and one action leads into other bonuses that get you to other actions. You're constantly looking for combos that'll lead into that massive turn. I thought it was really good all around. It had this very interesting dice wheel mechanic. So all the dice are laid out 1 through 6 in this wheel. And the dice themselves, whatever they roll, goes into a specific slot. And that slot is just by number. And then the dice are color-coded to get certain resources. And if the number is high, then the corresponding number of actions is low. So, for example, if you get food and you roll a 5, you would get 5 food and then 2 king actions.
The game looks pretty.
Or, and it always adds up to 7. So if you got like 6 ore, then you will only get 1 action of the corresponding type. If you get, 3 food, then 4 actions, etc., etc. And then so you're always trying to balance taking resources versus actions depending on what you need to do. And it was a pretty interesting, pretty dynamic system, and I really liked it. The one thing about it was that it seemed very clear that if you add players, it would add a lot of time. John Cox of John Gets Games taught it to me, and we played a 2-player game. We started around 6:30, and we ended about 8:39, something like that. And that was with teaching. So it's not like a super long game as long as you kind of get into it, but you're kind of building up to a point where you're trying to make that massive turn happen. So there's definitely some AP. There's definitely going to be a little like, oh, how big can I get this turn to be kind of thing. But pretty fun overall. I don't know if we want to play it 3 or 4 player, because it seems like from what the board says, there's certain spots you can only play here if they're 3 players, you only can play here if they're 4 players. And it just adds things, so you can just tell right off the bat, like, play times is going to be a lot longer with each person you add. But definitely check it out.
I'm always interested in anything the Italian gang puts out. They always have interesting games. But one of the knocks on them is that they have really interesting games. They're all kind of medium to heavy Euro-ish, but it's always kind of unclear just how deep the game is, I guess, or how much legs the game has. And obviously it's hard to tell after 1 play, but do you have any thoughts on just how samey it might be after a number of plays?
I think it tries to do what Stauffer Dynasty does. It creates variability by having a lot of variable tokens. And then where the tokens go and what the tokens do are very different. And there's basically 5 different actions. So the wheel is a die, which is 6 parts. And one of them is a wild one, which you can do any action with. So there's 5 different actions, and there's basically extra tokens of every type. And then where the tokens go and where they are laid out is going to be where the variability is. you're going to have a lot of different types of games with it because all the different combos and different actions and actions leading into other actions is going to be all across the board and it's going to be randomized. And there's like at least 30, 40 different tokens you can pick up. That's where the variability will be. I mean, after you play it a while, I'm sure like it'll be fairly samey in that, oh, I've seen this combo before. I've seen this combo before. But as far as which combo leads into what other combos, they're a very wide range.
Okay. Then yeah, that all makes sense. I'm pretty sold.
Yeah, it's pretty tactical. You're gonna look at board situation to figure out what you're gonna do next.
So Italian gang, is that like a general term we're using?
I think that's David's general term.
Yeah, the group has a name, but I forget what it is exactly.
Is it the mob?
The mob? No. It's just a group of designers. They're all Italian. At least I think they're all Italian or close to it, and they work together constantly. Their first game was Sulkin: The Mine Empire, I believe. Perhaps they had some published games before, but that was their first big game. And since they've had a number of really good medium heavy Euro games like Lorenzo Il Magnifico.
Who's gonna talk about their next game that we?
I will talk about my next game that I've been playing recently, and it's a very important game. It is an award-winning game. It just won the Spiel des Jahres for this year. Anyone know what it is?
Nice German accent there.
It's like a trivia quiz.
Okay.
Yes, I've been practicing. It is Cascadia. Cascadia is a game that's actually kind of like a trio. There's Calico, and there's another game I forget that's coming out. But anyway, Cascadia. Cascadia is apparently supposed to be the easiest of the three, and I think it's probably the best without having played the other two. So I feel pretty qualified to make that statement. It is a game where it's very simple. You draft a tile and an animal, and you already have 3 tiles to start with. When you draft a tile, you place it adjacent to any of your tiles, and then you take the animal you got with it and place it on a space that has the animal symbol there. If you don't have the animal symbol or you don't want to place it, then you just throw it away, no penalty, other than you have one less animal than your opponents. It's very quick. That's all you do, and you do this 20 times. So it's 20 actions per player. Then the game ends, and then there's scoring. Each animal scores in a different way, so where you place them is important. And all the tiles have terrain on them, sometimes one terrain, sometimes split in half. And as you place the tiles, there's no restrictions on how you place the tiles other than it has to be adjacent to a tile you already have. But you do want to match up all the terrain types because each type of terrain you have, you get points for your biggest mass of that terrain. So every time you draft, you want to consider the tile you place and how the terrain matches up, as well as the animal on it, so that you can have the best configuration, score the most points at the end. The game looks great. It's very basic, just animals and terrain, but it has good table presence. It's very easy to get into, and I honestly can't recommend it enough. It's probably one of my favorite games of the year. That is Cascadia. Have any of you tried
I
this?
have played Calico.
How difficult did you feel Calico was?
Not terribly difficult. This does sound a bit easier.
Yeah, it's a lot, from what I hear, because I haven't played Calico, it's a lot more forgiving. I hear Calico, you really need to pay attention to where everything is and fit everything correctly, otherwise you'll just be stuck. Is that a correct assessment, or?
That does check out. I did not find Calico particularly difficult.
Did you win?
Did I win? I don't remember. I played 2 or 3 games. I don't remember.
Feels like you didn't win then.
I might have won at least one of them. There was stuff going on, but it felt fairly straightforward. Again, just because it's it feels simple or easy doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, right? I'm just thinking okay, I've played Patchwork and King Domino a bit, and there's elements of that where you're looking for specific tiles and whatnot, and trying to put in the right spot. I guess my opinion with Calico is that it didn't quite grab me. I'm curious about how this one would do.
Yeah, we should play it sometime. It's very fast. I would say it's about 15-20 minutes per player.
Great.
And because you just take 20 turns, and each turn is you just draft, and while you're placing your tile and putting your animal, the next person can go. It's much more forgiving. Even if you have no idea what you're doing, strategically, you can still play the game, just get a bad score. I think it's great. Light but great. That's Cascadia. Well-deserved win of the well-deserved Game of the Year award. Let's see what Andrew's been playing.
All right. Well, as it turns out, I played this game yesterday, and this is a sort of ongoing campaign game called Kingdom Death Monster. It's a huge Kickstarter exclusive thing, I believe. For those of you familiar with video games, it's like Monster Hunter meets Darkest Dungeon. And to translate it, so it's a campaign-based thing. You sort of alternate between going on hunts, fighting these big, nasty monsters, and then returning home to your settlement if you survive, to then sort of manage affairs back at home. And then there's a sort of vague ongoing story in the background, and it's just very grim and dark and brutal. It really helps that one of the people I'm playing with has a lot of experience with it to help smooth things out, because depending on what you're looking for, it can be very unpleasant. But had a great time yesterday, and I'm looking forward to our next session.
You didn't buy the game?
I did not buy the game. No, this is through a friend of ours, Pirate Rob.
Good old Pirate Rob. Kingdom Death Monster. It's pretty expensive. There's a lot of miniatures in the game, which ratchet up the price. The miniatures are very well detailed, and you can paint them if you wish. It should be noted that the game is very adult themed. There is definitely nudity and uncomfortable situations, shall we say, mostly involving death. Thematically is where I feel the game really scores the highest, at least for me.
Death is, I imagine, uncomfortable. I haven't done it.
Yeah, one day I feel I'll be ready, but not right now.
I would agree with what David said about the theme being a very strong point about the game, for sure. There are a lot of cool moments in the game for you, because there's a sort of adventure book type thing in various different ways. Various different aspects have this adventure book type thing where you roll dice, your decision, and you have some decisions to make and stuff, and there's a lot of stuff going on. I definitely feel like I've barely scratched the surface, which is pretty cool. And again, it really helps that my friend has a lot of experience playing the game and knows the rules. I didn't have to learn the rules on my own or whatnot. I didn't have to slog through it. It's just, oh yeah, this is how things work. And that obviously makes for a much better play experience.
Yeah, there's a lot more to the game than just miniatures, too. There's a lot of content, a lot of story elements in it.
And to be clear, honestly, to play the game, you don't even need the miniatures. The miniatures are just make things nicer. It's not like a miniatures game like Warhammer or something.
They're like a small part of it, would you say?
They're just dressing to the game. You don't need them, but they do make the game nicer to have these figures that you're playing with, as opposed to just a cardboard cutout or something.
I don't think you got it, Joss. You might want to repeat yourself.
That's all right. We can go. We can continue. Shut Up and Sit Down has a review, which excites me. I love their reviews. I like that it's fully cooperative. That's great.
Joss, what have you been playing recently?
I met a new friend, and I was trying to show them some of my Gen Con haul, so I brought out Scout. And I was also playing with a friend who's got some Chinese heritage, so they immediately latched on to the kind of game type, because they've been playing games like that since they were a kid. Scout is a climbing game, not quite a trick-taking game, a climbing ladder game. I played with a deck of cards that goes 1 through 10, but is double. Each card is double-sided, so it's kind of like dominoes, actually. There's a 1-2, a 1-3, a 1-4. Basically, you get your hand, and you choose whether you want to play it upright or flip it over and play it upside down with those sets of numbers. And you can't change the order of your cards. And when you play, you must play, cards consecutively from your hand. And basically, the person's going to play a set, and it's only a matching pair or a run. And interestingly, a run can be just 2 cards. And then you can either top the person before you set, or you can pull one of their cards and add it to your hand, which is the only time you get to kind of change things in your hands. Everyone really liked it. We played it's the first time for me playing the full game, which is 1 round per player with 4, I think. And yeah, it landed well. I, had enough time to explore different strategies, but all in all, just a card game. Yeah, you guys played that one?
Yeah, I've played that one. I thought it was really good.
Oh yeah, it scratches that Tichu itch, so too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, in a way, interestingly, because you can't in Teacher, you're very much like changing your hands around and trying to put together something. This you have to kind of have to take what you have and build a hand from playing cards from the middle and closing numbers come together when you play cards. So it's a different kind of thing, but definitely scratches that itch.
It was a solid game. I remember hearing about it, and heck, Haas, you taught it to me. We played that one time. The one time I played it, and I had a really good time.
And then there's a rummy element where you can pull from someone's play. You can pull a card from the current play and add it to your hand, and thereby improving it. And since each card has 2 numbers, potentially you're getting, a couple of options in how to add it to your hand, and you can add it in anywhere. So
the big rule of Scout is that you can't change the order of cards in your hand at all.
Yeah, and it's not so obvious like when you want to beat someone's hand or when you want to just scout and pull a card from their hand. At first, I thought it was more obvious, but as I play more and more, I'm holding onto my cards longer and trying to build longer, and that's really the question: is how long you want to build and and when you want to play. Next time, I'll get them into something deeper, but that was great for the first time.
What player count did you play it at?
4.
Well, something I found interesting about this game, because our friend John Cox from John Gets Games loves this game and pulls it out every opportunity he has, more or less. So we played it at a number of player counts. The game gets so different the game is the same, but like 3 to 5.
Yeah, because the rounds end when everyone passes on a show. Like you play a set of cards and everyone either passes and with 3 players. Yeah, but if you play with a large amount of players, like 4 players or 5 players even, every time someone scouts it and pulls a card from your hand, your show becomes less and less powerful. And by the end, there's like 1 card to beat, and it's like pretty much impossible that someone can't play 1 card on top of your card. In a smaller game, you put down 5 cards, and that might finish the round because it doesn't get weaker by the time it gets back to you. Anyways, yeah, it does change a lot, and I'm not sure what number I like it most at. Maybe I just appreciate that the game changes slightly, and so I appreciate the different kinds of gameplay. But you definitely have to know what you're getting into.
yeah, there are a lot of good games that do that. Stitch Element does that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Stitch Element 3 is very different from Stitch Element 5.
Well, I suppose any trick-taking game sounds like it does that, or trick-taking adjacent game. But yeah, I think probably for Scout, the sweet spot is probably 4. But it's definitely good at 3 and 5, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm. I've learned that a good way to do it is to play your hand, your show, in front of you, because as it goes around and people are taking cards, it can be hard to remember like whose hand is that, whose show is that sometimes. But it's got like kind of a Uno feel where you're just kind of going around in a circle, and you're never really stopping.
Okay. I didn't think about it like that, but I guess that's true.
Uno feel. That's a new word. New phrase.
I mean, you know what I mean? That kind of continuous play. Just trying to go out. Yeah.
Cascadia also kind of has that Uno feel.
Yeah, it does. I like that Uno feel. It's elegant. It's like keeps it going,
Yeah.
There's no big stop. Okay, everyone stop. We have to do all the end of turn shit.
All right, and that's it for games we've been playing recently. On to our next segment. Since it's our pilot episode, I thought we should introduce ourselves a little bit by naming our top 5 games that has a range of mechanics to kind of demonstrate our range of tastes. So they can be all kinds of different games, and it'll just give our audience a chance to figure out which host's taste is most like their own, and I think that'll be pretty helpful in future episodes for reviews. We're going to be doing our top 5 games that demonstrate our range of taste in games. For me, number 5, my first game is Nemesis from Awakened Realms. I'm not much of a co-op game player, but this is one co-op that I really enjoy. It has a lot of theme, very epic, very plot narrative driven, which is something I really enjoy in games in general, but don't often get to indulge in.
I remember one of the fun things about this game, because I actually played this with you, is that we kept playing and losing, but each time we were destroyed by a new method. A new thing kept popping up that we ignored, and it totally cost us. And the next time, we're gonna make sure the fire doesn't spread, and then we all got killed by aliens.
This is true. I was there as well. It was pretty hilarious.
If only they had the rights to Alien for this game, because that's clearly what it is. I think it would have been nice.
Yeah, this game really actually has a campaign mode that's only 4 games. I always wanted to try it, but I thought to myself, okay, let's beat the game once before we start the campaign mode, and then that still hasn't happened. So what are you gonna do?
Really,
Dave,
yeah.
what's your number 5?
Well, number 5 was really difficult to come up with because I kind of compressed my top 5 from my top 10 because there's a lot of similar games in my top 10, but I had to have something in here to represent my love for party games and just simple group, not too heavy, just fun for very inclusive fun for almost any group. And the game I came up with here was one that I've had the most success with the most groups, and that one is Happy Salmon. I don't know if any of you have played Happy Salmon, but it comes in a Bananagram bag that
sounds like a one-on-one game.
Almost. Well, there's a lot of one-on-one in it. Basically, what happens is you have a stack of cards. Everyone has the same stack of cards, but it's shuffled up, and on it are 4 actions. One is a high five, one is a fist bump, one is it's called switcheroo, where you have to switch places with another person, around the table, and one is the Happy Salmon. And this is all happening in real time. You just look at your top card, and you call it out and see if anyone else has a match. If they do have a match, you do the action, and then you throw the card in the middle, and the first person to get through their hand of stuff wins. So it's just frantic, real-time thing, and I have to demonstrate the Happy Salmon to you.
Wonderful,
but it's like Happy Salmon is almost like a secret handshake. It's a quick way. I think you can look it up because it's a thing. Yeah, it's just silly fun. There's no real strategy. You just try to go through as fast as possible, and then if you're tired, once you've played a couple times, you can do the ultra fun mode of no talking, which means that for every card you have to mind the action.
Excellent.
And look ridiculous, and if someone else is doing the same action, you can be like, hey, and then just fist bump, and then throw it in. Always been hit. Sometimes people even record everyone just looking ridiculous, send it to the group. It's really a good time. So my number 5 is Happy Salmon.
You say there's no strategy to this, but I played with someone who was gaming the system as hard as he could. It was pretty funny.
I have to see this Happy Salmon gaming, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously this game is, just supposed to be silly fun. We were all playing it in a group. We thought it was just silly fun. But one person was the ultimate gamer. So he would be looking around at everyone's cards left and make sure not to interact with the person who had the fewest cards. And then he would intentionally hold his cards in a manner that basically had them in a perfect stack so that you could not see how many cards are underneath. Especially when he got down to his last card, so as to indicate, let's do the thing, and then so he could finish first and win, as it were.
Wow.
I
guess 2 things I will add to that. There did become a meta of when we were talking to call out the person with the least and be like, hey, don't interact with that person, even if you have the least, of course. And the second thing is with the no talking, especially one of my friends was especially good at sniping. So you'd be holding out your hand for a fist bump. You see someone else, hey, they have a fist bump. And then as you're going for it, just all of a sudden from the side, someone steals your fist bump.
Yeah, I just thought that was this is a party game. Don't you think you're taking it a little too far? And they're like, no, man, I'm just playing the game. I'm like, okay. You do you. I'm not going to take it that serious.
Yeah, it might be a little more serious than intended, but it's still fun even when someone does that. It's not that big a deal, I feel. But and yeah, for those reasons, Happy Sam is my number 5.
Okay, my number 5. I'm going to say that my list probably isn't in any given order, but my number 5. What I'm going to say is my number 5 is The Mind, which is a wonderful, quick, light, but very delightful co-op game. That's funny little premise, but it's really just about it's a fun way to get to know people. It's an interesting way because it's very much about non-verbal communication.
This game, yeah, I really love this game, but one of the knocks of this game is that when it came out, it was such a phenomenon that it got overplayed, or people over-suggested, I would say, and people were really into it because it is so unique and so different. That people are just starting to recommend, oh, you got to play this game, and especially if you didn't like the game, it got really annoying. And so I think that it's one of the knocks against it.
That's very fair, yeah.
I bring that one out a lot to a lot of, non-gamers, and I don't know. What do you guys feel about the replayability of it? Because once you figure out how to count, then you just need to have someone who sucks at counting for the game to be fun.
Could be that. I think people that take the counting to the extreme where they bust out a clock or try to have some kind of metronome, I think that's a little much.
That's literally cheating. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Right. Could be considered that too.
Wait, do you think people bust out a metronome?
No, just a metaphorical one.
Okay.
Or like one person has even suggested to the group, like, hey, we should all just go by seconds, all right? Just get used to the time and let's practice. And then that's a little much. That's against the spirit of the game, really.
Yeah, you get what this game is about, right?
I think by going by seconds in your head is all right, but not like looking at a clock.
Right, exactly. So there's a hardcore method to play this game, which is to play with the cards face down. You put the cards in the middle face down as a group, and then you turn them over at the end, and you see how you did.
I like that.
In the rules, and I've never gotten to that point with a group. We always screw up before that.
I've tried it a few times in 2-player games. It's very fun. It's worth trying.
How often do you succeed? I mean, and when do you use the throwing star? When you're doing it face down?
Anytime. I've never tried it, so I don't succeed very often. But it's the same rule. You use the throwing star whenever you want. Everyone holds up.
It's the same principle, right? It's like you get a feel for each other's timing, and then if it's just like, wait, what's going on? Like the same feel will happen.
Yeah. For your uniqueness, there's no other game like this.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great pick.
So I can go into mine. My fifth one, if I were going to put it. Yeah, I don't know if it's in order, but I try to get a range. Mamma Mia, which does share some similarities, especially if you're doing the advanced mind. Has everyone played Mamma Mia? Basically, you're putting things onto a pile. You're putting cards, ingredients onto a pile, and when you think you have the pile has enough ingredients for a pizza in your hand, you put that pizza down on top, and it's kind of a memory game, remembering what's in there. And when a pizza comes up at the end of the game, you're going through all the pizzas, and the pizza's kind of like used up the ingredients. So there might be a pizza that takes up the ingredients that you were going to use, yada yada. But it's a memory game. It's pretty fun to flip over and read at the end. But generally, it's always like a fun time. It's always a happy time. It's very easy to get people into. Playability, accessibility is a pretty big one for me.
And it's super nice because it's just a deck of cards, kind of like Coloretto, where it's so portable.
Yeah, which means it also has an awful box.
Mm-hmm.
Wish they really fixed those boxes. All my Mamma Mia and Coloretto boxes.
The thing with the chef on it, right?
There's one chef on it,
Yeah.
Have you converted to using those magic deck boxes? That's what I hear a lot of people do. They just put all the cards into separate boxes and then move.
That's a good idea. I have done that for one of my games.
Instead of
I've done that for
original
America.
Yeah.
Yeah. Getting back to Mamma Mia, this used to be one of my favorite games. It still is one of my favorite games, but it might have made my top 10 had a lot of games not come out after this. The most interesting thing for me about it is it's done by Uwe Rosenberg, who later went on to make some of the best heavy games like Agricola and Feast for Odin. And when Agricola came out,
was Mamma Mia made by Uwe Rosenberg? Oh wow! I totally
Did not see that
Don't
coming.
remember
Yeah, it used to be all about small card games, like including Bonanza and
Yeah,
stuff like
Bonanza.
that. So
Right. I know he did Bonanza, or I remember that he did. Adam really liked Mamma Mia, and we would play it. We would play it once in a while, and it was a good game. But I totally didn't remember it was made by Uwe
yeah,
Rosen.
all the things Josh said about it. It's quick, it's fun, it's accessible. It's unique. There's not, other than its sequels, of course. There aren't games kind of like it. It's very satisfying.
This is great because I didn't know there were sequels. That's awesome. I'll have to pick one up.
Yeah, it's called Sole Mio, and it's basically the same game. It just features more complex pizzas to make. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can explain that to you later. Yeah,
And a box that's intact.
at this point, maybe not. You'll probably have to get it used. Yeah.
Probably. My only hang up with this game was the memory aspect. Because there's
The whole
always
game.
somebody who
Yeah.
didn't like the memory aspect and then would always complain about it. I'm like, he explained the game. I think you should have kind of guessed that that's a major factor, and then we can move on, though. We can move on.
Well, I feel like the memory aspect is
True.
kind of unique in that way because it's sort of like a semi-memory action. It's more like a guessing aspect. You don't really have to memorize stuff, and I feel like some of the best moments are the parts where it was like, oh, like someone put down like a pepperoni pizza, and it's like, oh, they obviously going to fill that. There's no more pepperoni, and then when you get to the reveal, it turns out they were wrong. Now there's tons of pepperoni. And everything just goes haywire. Some of your just throwaway pizzas all of a sudden become made. It screws up the entire order of everything. I find that great fun.
We're back around to me for number 4. My number 4 is Tichu. So this is a card game from '92. I've been playing variations of this game since I was a little kid, for 30 years, plus or minus. Probably a little more than 30 years. That's just wow. My family's been having fun with this game for decades. Literally. The only thing that Tichu really did was the 4 special cards and the partnership aspect, which were really fun, new mechanisms to work with, because it really forced you to kind of think about what you were doing in a very different way, in a very meaningful way, which is something I thought was really fun.
What was the game called? I mean, what was the versions you played when you were a kid?
They're like Big Two, Deuces, Posoidos. There's just a whole bunch of names for it.
I think other places call it the
Asshole.
President. That too. Stuff like that. Yeah, there's several names. I'm sure there's even more colloquial names for where
variations
people are
from,
listening from.
the Great Almudi too. I mean, that's kind of that game took from it too.
There's a format here. They call it ladder building games, and it's all based on just that idea of playing over someone
Climbing
else.
games.
Climbing, trick taking.
Climbing games, yeah.
You can climb more things than a ladder.
Yeah, but ladders are universal, more or less.
Our game group was pretty obsessed with it for a very long time, so much so we actually had whole tournaments for it. I ended up running a bunch of the tournaments for it.
I ended up losing one of those really bad.
Yeah, 4 or 5 tournaments. I don't know. It just got so big for so long, and I'm like, okay, this is a lot of work to run these tournaments now. I think at the height we had 14 pairs, 16 pairs. It was crazy. So that's 32 people. Yeah, that isn't just 16 people, but 16 pairs that wanted to enter. And I actually had to have a wait list system for them. Because, I would always announce it to the group online, okay, we're going to do this, few weeks from now. Please sign up with your pairs, have both partners ready, blah, blah, blah. Then, as any other event, they would just show up last minute, no partner, just singles by themselves. And I'm like, all right, go in the singles quarter, go find yourself a partner. I don't know. You're either going to find somebody or you're not. And then everyone who signed up ahead of time, I would set them up, and then whoever didn't have a partner would only get into play if they found one and it filled out the bracket evenly. Otherwise, I wouldn't let you play in the tournament. And that's just the way it went. I'm like, sorry, dude, you got to sign up ahead of time to guarantee a spot. If you don't, you're subject to the needs of the tournament as a whole. I'll let you in if there's room, but if there isn't, you're out of luck. I'm not doing a whole bunch of extra work to figure out how to fit you in somewhere. It's like, not going to do it.
That is possibly the biggest knock on this game is that it is, although I love the team aspect of it, most trick-taking games will not have that, and so that adds to it. It does mean that you need exactly 4 to play the game, which can be a little rough. The other part is that it's so popular that it can actually be intimidating to get into at this point.
That's true.
Oftentimes it'll be like 3 very fanatic players that needed a 4th, and everything you do is wrong. Hopefully they're nice about it and understand, but that's not always the case with some people that are obsessed with a certain game.
How'd you feel about Haggis?
Oh, Haggis is good too. I like that one.
That's the 3-player kind of version-ish of Tichu.
Yeah, it's good with 3. You can play it with 4 or 5, I think, too. Or is it only 3?
I think it's only 3.
Travis Worthington taught me that. Yeah, it was pretty. I like that one too.
Look at you throwing around names.
It's 2 or 3 player.
Yeah. That situation you described was honestly amongst the worst. When 3 people who play a lot need a 4th and they just drag someone in, and then the 4th person is like just wants to play and doesn't necessarily want to learn every like intricate, nuanced convention and tactic in the game. Because this is what always happens: the more experienced team wins the hand, then the person who's partnered with the less experienced person always wants to go over and critique their play, and like some people do not want their play critiqued. They're just like, dude, I'm not here to like learn all the tricks here. I just want to play the game. And then like it's just a bad situation. I've just seen it happen so many times. It's like, oh, okay, dude. And sometimes when I'm playing and I'm the more experienced player, I'm like, it's totally cool. Just do whatever you think is correct. If you want to talk about it after, we can, but we don't have to. We can just move on. And then the more experienced team starts like telling the guy, the new guy, what he's doing wrong, and I just tell them, hey, guys, no, it's his first game. Just let him play. It's fine. It's just There's that obsession creates this like need to tell other people how to play better, and I'm like, that is not always a good thing. Just don't do it. Just resist the urge. But yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
I got a lot of stories about Tichu, but that aspect of like one person kind of holding other people down kind of leads me into my number 4, which is it's a game I personally like a range of tastes in it, but one thing I like more than others is interaction in a game. Done well, or unique interactions in games. And personally, games that your move affects the other players. Well, some people hate that. That's something I really like. I understand it can be done poorly, and I don't really like direct conflict war games as much. But my next game, which is Broom Service, is one of my favorites. Also, Witch's Brew. It's a very similar game, but that one's out of print and harder to find. I think Broom Service is out of print at this point too, but it was a more recent game, so I'm going with that. I like the inclusion of the board. I have friends who prefer Witch's Brew. I kind of consider them basically the same game. Anyway, and this one has a unique play-follow mechanism where one person leads with an action, then everybody else, you drafted your hand beforehand out of a set of 10. Everyone else has to follow that action if they can. And when you do, you have to choose whether you're the good action, like the best action, which is better but can be stolen, or just the follow action, which has no risk but is generally a weaker version of the action. The thing is, if anyone after you also drafted that card and also takes the best action, then you lose the best action. You get nothing, and that's just it. So it has this unique mechanism where you have to observe what the other players are doing, especially the person after you, and try to predict what they want to do so that you can get away with sneaking in the best actions and getting an advantage. And I really, really like that game for that reason.
I do remember hearing that mechanic for the first time and just being like, oh, this is like super clever and fun, and I had a great time the one time I played it. Broom Service.
Oh, you've only played once?
I only played once. Maybe I'm pretty sure only once. It's possible it's twice, but
Yeah, it's definitely.
I'm like the newest to like the board game scene in
Oh,
general in this
okay.
group, right? And so
Yeah, of the four of us.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty good game. It gets a little samey for me after a while. I guess I ultimately adopt the tactic where my cards, the actions I picked, don't need to link into each other. They're all generally independent. So what I mean by that is some people might pick, I gather
That makes
this
sense.
resource and then deliver this resource. I pretty much tried never to do that. It's usually gather a bunch of resources and then, so whether I take the brave or the cowardly action, that's the difference, right? Brave or the cowardly.
It depends on which game you're playing, but yeah, that works.
Yeah. I would get what I get, and each action is independent, like will work independent of the other. Because the worst thing is when you hit a chain where if you don't get the first action, your next 2 or 3 actions are no good anyway, and it's like, oh, that sucks. And then in a subsequent round, I would pick all deliver actions, and then maybe I wouldn't deliver everything, but I would get to deliver something probably, and then.
Well, yeah, that leads into some of my favorite moments of this game is when people pull off a combo that's based on like timing or a chain of actions. Because if you're not the leader, then other people can choose or can affect the order of how the actions come out. And so, it is a risk, but when it pays off, it's a great feeling. The other one is just when you play an action, you're trying to decide whether to take the good or the bad action, and you're just staring at the person to your left like, do you have this? And just taking this in, and everyone at the table is also just engaged because they know what's going on. And it's like, what's he gonna do?
You already have
very
3
fun.
of the orange resource.
Yeah.
But did you
There's no
pull
way-
this card just to screw me?
There's no way you
would have-
took this. You don't need this, right? Like, guys just, oh, maybe I got it. Who knows?
What way to find out?
Yeah, so that sort of interaction is exactly why I love the game, and that's why I picked it at number 4, which is Broom Service.
Cool. My number 4, I'm going to go with another co-op game, Letter Jam. So another more recent one. It's a fun little word game, and we're sort of every player makes a word for another player to sort of like solve over the course of the game, and then you sort of one by one you have this letter in front of you, but you face it away from you, so you don't see what this letter is, and then the team will sort of, take turns giving clues to help everyone ideally figure out what their letters are, and then at the very end of the game, you sort of unscramble and solve your word.
Yeah, this is a good pick. I'm a little biased against it due to being a spell check baby and have a hard time spelling things in general, but that's just me.
Oh, that's one of the best parts. It's in the rules. You don't have to make a real word
Oh yeah.
when you do it. So I've given clues that have been misspelled. Just because I had to. I ended up giving proper names as a clue. Like my favorite clue of all time I've ever given was once I gave a clue was Bugs Bunny, all one word.
Nice.
And it's a great clue. It's 10 letters. Like people got it, but they're looking at it like, really?
Yeah, I also really enjoy that in the rules. It's like very like free form, and like there's a scoring system if you care about it, and I've never paid attention to it.
Yeah, the theme's a little out there, but it is an abstract word game, so it's totally usable.
Yeah,
it's a great pick.
So we're on number 4, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I had to choose games that I got to table most, and I had to choose a variety. Chameleon's my next game. Chameleon's another party game. It's one I find myself playing the most and showing people the most. It's a hidden role game like Spyfall or Fake Artist, or I guess even on the box it said it was created out of Codenames and some other game. I met the guy who made the game before it was published. It was called Gooseberry, and the guy was super nice, and he gave me the game. We were sitting in the front of was it BGG.con 2018, I think, and yeah, I saw it inside the Target a couple years later as Codenames, and I mean as Chameleon. Yeah, it's a game where
Or a
you
chameleon.
can play around in like 5 minutes. Everyone gets to know what the secret word is except for one person, and then you go around and everyone says the A word in order to express that they do know or don't, etc. I don't know. It's a game you can play. One of my biggest things about playing games with a lot of people I'm around is how can I get them to enjoy themselves as soon as possible. Because a lot of people have this like block in their head where they can't, quote unquote, do things that are difficult or do things that take, too long, hold their suspense of disbelief up in the air for a while.
Not to mention, attention span is kind of a problem these days.
Yeah, but that one usually grabs them and keeps them going for a long time. There's always lots of fun discussion. The last time I played though, my partner was the chameleon 4 times in a row. Like we started the game, I taught them, and then they were chameleon 4 times in a row, and they couldn't handle that at all.
Oof, yeah.
That's hilarious.
It's pretty stressful being a chameleon, but it's just a game.
Yeah, that one's a good one.
Like all these games, if you're horrible at lying or you get anxiety over it, it can be a big detriment. But I like this one. It's not as bad to be the chameleon. A, for the speed of the round, like you don't have to, be the liar for very long. B, you get a nice knowledge of the general topic, so it's not terribly hard. Like unlike Spyfall, where you just have no information whatsoever, it's not terribly hard to come up with something plausible yet generic as the chameleon. So I like this game for those reasons.
Too far away or too close, right? Those are the two. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's funny. It's funny because even if you know the word, those are also the pitfalls you could go into. Like you don't want to give a clue that's too close, but you can't give a clue that's too generic either.
I definitely like this better than Spyfall. I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say that like Spyfall sounds way more stressful being the person who doesn't know what's going on than Chameleon.
It's fun though. I like the conversations.
Oh, it absolutely is. But that's why some people like Spyfall, is because it is more stressful and more intense, I guess. The only thing I hate about Chameleon personally is the box. I get why they did it, but it's just a screen. It has Chameleon, and it's kind of it's blended into the cover of the box, which is this green and white checkerboard.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah.
It kind of hurts my eyes a little bit.
It hurts your eyes.
It strains my eyes to read it. Yeah.
How are you about looking at like a checkered flag at the end of a race? Is that like, do you turn away?
Well, if there's no word at the end that says winner or anything like in it, like I'm trying to read.
Well, I mean, you know what the game is without even, you don't have to read it.
Yeah, I don't have to read it, but just the first time I saw it, I'm just like, you have to get real close and peer into it. I don't know if it's the best way to advertise your game, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's clever.
No, I had that feeling. It was stressful looking at it.
I mean, it's clever. It's just like a little annoying, I guess, which is not the best marketing tool.
It's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But now that I have it and I don't have to like look at the name all the time, it's like, it's intriguing.
Yeah.
There are many games like that have a kind of a optical illusion on the cover.
It is unique. I'll give it that.
All right, we moved on to number 3. My number 3 is Kemet, by Madigo, French company. This is sort of my dudes on a map pick, and the system in it is just so streamlined and pretty easy that I can't help but admire it. And it also discourages turtling. So for a dudes on the map game, I think that's critical. You gotta fight if you're gonna win. You can't just sit back and turtle up and wait for everybody else to fight and then come in and fight everybody else. It's like, and then there's no stalemates or anything. It's get it together, get your army together, go and fight, and that's it. And the other thing I really admire about it was the powers. Like every power is pretty useful. Like, I can't think of one power that's like, well, this is garbage, I'm never going to buy this. It's like, oh, every single power tile actually does something. It's pretty good and is proportionally good relative to how much it costs. And I was like, oh, okay. Every single tile is useful, and got to admire that.
I've never played it. I want to play it.
Okay.
You should play it, especially they've with all the things Paul has mentioned. There's even more. All the players the map is weirdly designed, but well designed in that all the players are equidistant from each other by number of steps, and that prevents like the Australia problem of like camping in a corner or finding a little hideout, kind of thing to do. Anyone is vulnerable at any time, like equally in a way. And also, because it's so offensive, they've adjusted the rules. There's a 1.5 rules, which makes it even better in terms of like no turtling, get out there, very, very aggressive, very involved, like the whole time. It is a heavy game, and there is a lot of direct conflict, but insofar as those types of games, I definitely feel this is one of the best.
Yeah, you got to be a little into it and know what you're getting into, but other than that, it does what it does well. And honestly, I can't think of another Dudes on the Map game that really does the same thing or does it as well. David, what's your number 3?
Well, my number 3. I've noticed you add the publisher to these games, and now
You
I
haven't
feel
looked
bad
up the publisher.
I didn't.
It doesn't matter.
No, I didn't look at the publisher. I didn't mention the publisher in my earlier ones, and I'm like, I actually don't know the publisher for most of the games I like. I'd have to research it. But the number 3 I definitely know, and that's CGE, Czech Gaming, whatever the E stands for. And just like my number 4, my number 3 has a lot of, I feel, interaction. No matter how bad you're doing, how well you're doing, and that is Dungeon Lords.
Oh, this made your list. Wow.
Absolutely. Oh yes, I absolutely love Dungeon Lords. I feel like it is one of the best designs out there. I feel it is kind of an older design. I feel like it could be revamped or just revitalized a little bit. It only needs like minor changes, but it could be a little more touched up based on more modern standards or more modern innovations in gaming. But the core of it is still solid, where you play 3 actions on your board and you go around kind of like this top 5 list, and each person reveals an action one at a time. And your first action will go, everyone reveals their first action, play them in order, second action, play them in order, and third action, play them in order. But you're not doing the action, you're placing a worker on the action space. Each action space has 3 spots on it, and you're trying to get into that middle spot. So you want to be the second person to play the action. And that starts you looking around at other people, seeing what they want to do. And it's a bit more nuanced than that, but in general, that is the core of it, and that is why I love this game. And you may have noticed there's 3 actions. One of the biggest knocks, just like Tichu, is you really, really want to play this game with 4 players. And so when you play with 4 players, if everybody takes the action and you're the 4th player, then you get nothing because there's no spot for your worker to go into anymore. So that kind of fear might push you to go a little earlier, and then you get the first action, which isn't as good, and you're like, I should have gone later.
There's certain situations where if you go first, you get nothing, and obviously if you're 4th, you get nothing, and yeah, so you're in a tough spot all around.
Yeah. So, but at its core, it's very simple. The game is 8 cards. You pick 3 of them each turn. Actually, 6 cards because 2 of them are not in your hand at any point. So, and each card has a resource on it or something on it. That's what you're getting when you play it. Couldn't be simpler, right?
That sounds really neat.
That system of inclusion, just like Broom Service, where you really need to look around at the other people and include them in your decision making.
Yeah.
There's nothing better for me, and therefore Dungeon Lords is my number 3. Oh, I'll also say, as an older design, it does benefit playing the game a few times, like knowing. You can look it up, but you do kind of need to know what is going to come up later as part of your decision making. So having people play a game multiple times wasn't that big a deal in like 2004, I think. I think it came out around then.
I think it's later than 4.
It might be like 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, I think more so.
You do need 4 players. It's a game that
2009.
rewards like multiple plays, which wasn't as big a problem in 2009 as it is now with so many
Yeah,
games
that's true.
Right.
coming out. And also, I will say this game can be very nasty.
Yeah.
It's very possible. There's 8 rounds in a base game, and it's very possible in the first 2 rounds to misplay and totally blow your game and just be wrecked for the whole time.
It's pretty brutal. Like the learning curve.
It's not that bad.
It's-
Even
You're learning.
even-
Bound to happen.
Yeah.
Even when you get brutalized, I find it kind of fun because you can still try to make your dungeon as good as possible despite
Yeah.
being totally wrecked.
Oh.
You still have you may not be able to win, but you can try to, come back and just make a nice little dungeon or accomplish something.
This game was rough. I played it.
It does have
yeah,
that, yeah.
You definitely do want to play it a couple times. I know I've only played it a few times, and yeah, it feels very punishing.
Yeah, it is.
It definitely is. It's got that old school punishing mentality.
A lot of Chivato
feel
games
like
are like that though. Like
The earlier ones, at least, yeah. Codenames isn't so punishing, but anybody moves, you don't take that big a hit. But I think if Chivato revamped it or revised this game and made it like kind of it still has that aspect of like not punishing, but like more rewarding for the other players. So you're not really punished, but you just kind of stay the same. So it's a little bit nicer. I think this system could really take off. I think it still holds up and is still a great system. But it is in a punishing game. So.
I mean, it's designed to be very tight. Like
Yes.
very small margins and very small margins for error. Like, it punishes a mistake pretty severely. Because you're essentially taking 12 actions, and in those 12 actions per year, you're gonna try to solve this puzzle at the end, right? That's what essentially the adventurers coming in to attack your dungeon is like. It's a puzzle that you need to solve, and you miss an action, man. Like it's really tough, especially in the beginning.
Yeah. Well, I love puzzles, and for that reason and others, it's my number 3, which is Dungeon Lords.
Yeah, I've never heard the game, but like that mechanic sounds very different from, more modern games. It still sounds very interesting. I definitely agree that it would hold up. I'm curious.
What's your number 3, Andrew?
Well, my number 3, I'm gonna throw out one more co-op game before I move on to non-co-op games, but it's gonna be Spirit Island. This is just one of the sort of heavier co-op games, probably my first big like heavy co-op game, and my friends and I, we loved it. We immediately split a copy, like as in like we went halvesies in on a copy. It's just like so like my background is a lot of like card games, specifically Magic the Gathering when I was much younger, and so this sort of had like everything for me, right? You had the awesome effects and possibilities from all these cards and all these powers, and it had a really neat I thought the timing system of how like your characters go, then the opponents go, and then you have there's fast and slow actions, and the enemy turn is in between your fast and slow actions. I thought that timing aspect of it was really neat. Just sort of learning that whole system, and like all your effects felt so small at the beginning, but then like things keep happening, and the synergies between all the very wild or very varied spirits at this point. Just very, very cool interactions all around. Just had a great time. I've continued to have a great time with it. I know, David, you've played it a lot.
Oh, absolutely. I love this game. I was just waiting for someone else to interject because I would just basically say the same stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like about it. Oh yeah, go ahead, Paul.
The fast action, slow action thing is very similar to the mechanic in Dungeon Lords. They have that too with the fast magic, slow magic, in the puzzle aspect.
Oh.
So yeah. Just thought that was cool.
It's a bit of a weird transition because in Dungeon Lords it's just the enemies, but
Yeah. This is what
regardless.
you can do versus what the enemy can do. Yeah.
That's true though. One of the things I love most about this game is that it actually feels like it's a heavy game. There's a lot of the decision space, and it's very easy to get wrecked. Honestly, it's very easy to make a mistake. But despite all that, it's still very thematic. All the spirits in the game are unique, and they all feel kind of like what they are, and they do it with just 4 cards. Or most of the spirits only start with 4 cards, so the only variance is really the 4 cards and your spirit's special powers. But even with that, it feels highly thematic. Like when you're the rock guy, you feel like this stalwart, defensive golem kind of thing. When you're the fire guy, you're blazing around, just burning everything, just going nuts offensively. There's even one that's like the ocean where you go in on the coast like the tide and you come out. You have to come back out and you keep going back and forth like in and out on the island. It's really cool.
It's true. It's true. The themes for some of those spirits were pretty awesome.
For my money, this is the best heavy co-op game out there, and that includes like Gloomhaven, other stuff like that. For me personally, it's definitely yeah, it definitely would have made my top 10. I would strongly consider this for my top 5. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it.
That looks very well. I've been talking about that game a lot, watch people play it a lot, hear a lot of things about it. I think I saw a gameplay next to me, but they spent 3 or 4 hours on it.
If you have 4 players, it can take that long, yeah.
Yeah, 4 players plus close to the first time, yeah.
So a little daunting, but I was just talking about that last night with my gamers that we want to play that one next. Cool.
Does it have a difficulty kind of? You can ramp up the difficulty and ramp down the difficulty depending on the situation.
That too, yeah. So there's so many ways to customize it to your experience, not just what spirits you use, but what kind of enemy you face. So there's several different adversaries, as they call it. They each have their own unique little gimmick, and even within that, there are multiple levels. So you can really ramp up the difficulty. You can adjust the difficulty to make the game experience that you want.
Okay. I think that's especially important with any game that's more complicated, like hard to learn. If your barrier for entry is really high, you need to be able to kind of adjust the difficulty appropriately.
Well, interestingly, I think there is a way to make it even easier than the base game. I feel like for some people, the base game actually is hard enough.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
Although you can ramp it up much higher, as Andrew said. So yeah, they do have that variety and variability in not only what you play, but what the enemies are, which also makes it even better.
Cool. Shall I go to my third?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
My third is Age of Steam. Toss in there the original OG Age of Steam that is really punishing. You can pretty much fuck your whole game up on the first turn. They have made updates like Steam, which takes away that aspect, and sounds like it's probably fun, but I don't know. I learned it as original Age of Steam, and it just kind of stuck with me as that. It's a train game, a track building game, a pick up and deliver game. But you're vying for tracks between towns, and you also have to think about the puzzle aspect of there's these cubes on this town. It wants to get over to possibly this or this town, stopping in as many towns as possible. But you're slowly ramping up your train and how many towns you can stop in. So you might want to take it for a 2-town trip this turn, or you might want to take it for a 6-town trip in 5-6 turns. But you got to have that in mind because you can see all the goods that are out there. Some more goods come out slowly, but the big bulk of it's already out there. So it's a huge puzzle you're trying to figure out. And yeah, fighting for track space on the thing, fighting for routes that connect. And then there's also the auction of there's 5 different roles and which one's going to suit you the best and who is going for what. And before you even get to the auction, you have to know how much money you're going to spend that turn on the track you're going to buy and the auction that you're going to bid in. So you really have to to dial it in. You can add some, give yourself some extra money, right? So every turn at the beginning of the game, beginning of each round, you take a loan basically, and you try not to take too much, but trying to give yourself some variability. Yeah, has anyone played that one?
A long time ago.
A long time ago.
The best thing about Joss's list is like he went from Chameleon to Age of Steam, and just the spectrum of skill there is just so wide and so awesome. I remember playing this game, and yeah, basically it's exactly as Joss described. Like you need to know how much money you're gonna use in the round and ask for it right at the beginning. And the variation there is very punishing, because if you take too much, you're going to be paying that interest all game, and it's just brutal. But if you take too little and you get nothing, you make no progress, and then you still have to pay the interest on the initial loan anyway. You're just done. So there's you need to be able to like get the correct amount on your loan, and it varies a lot by how much the other players are taking, which you can't know. So this game is like, it's fun, but it's pretty brutal. Like I remember it being pretty brutal.
Oh yes, this game often comes up as one of the games that is brutal.
Yeah.
If you mess up your first turn, like Josh said, if you fuck up your first turn, yeah, you're done.
Well, you just don't fuck up.
Just don't do that. Just don't do that. But
the usual, yeah.
But I played actually different versions of this game. The Railroad Tycoon. Josh mentioned just Steam is a different game. It's not Age of Steam, although it's very similar. And yeah, for all the reasons you said, this game is what it is. It's harsh, but it is satisfying if you get it right, because there are those huge pitfalls.
It's pretty big though, from my memory at least. But maybe I'm just bad at train games too. All right, moving on to number two. My number 2 pick is Automobile by Martin Wallace. I don't know why I misspoke his name.
All right.
Oh, the guy that made Age of Steam.
Yeah, same guy.
You're gonna get a cease and desist for that.
This is his most unique game, as I can recall. I don't think any other game I can't remember any other game that uses the same tech track properties that this game does, and how it uses research cubes, which is just the resource to spend on the technologies, and how it extremely incentivizes you to keep pushing forward on the tech track. It's pretty brutal too, or it can be, and you really have to always just weigh the costs of keeping a certain automobile factory open versus closing it, and then competing for market share and fulfilling those demand tiles can be so brutal. You have to watch what the other players are doing to kind of figure out how much supply you should be supplying into the market. Demand tile in, say, a 4-player game, there'll be just 4 demand tiles, and that'll tell you how many cars are going to be sold in the whole round. Now, there's definitely ways to mitigate this, but you need to be able to take up a good amount of that demand. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table. Your opponents take that opportunity by selling more cars. But if you build too many and your overall factory situation is too inefficient, man, that game is pretty harsh. So you got to strike that balance and fill that demand pretty carefully, which I have to admit is pretty brilliant all around, and I haven't seen another game repeat it exactly. So that's my number 2, Automobile.
Yeah, it's a lovely game. I love the ways it pushes symbols, and I love the theme. And I mean, the whole game, the board just kind of looks different. I've played it a bunch back in the day.
I'm a little confused though. You kept saying tech track, and I don't think there's any tech in the game. there's three types there's three types of vehicles that you might be going after, and you need to get those in each of the markets.
The tech
but
track refers to the board itself. Each new model represents an improvement in technology. And it's a thematic
Oh,
tech
I
track.
see.
So
It's
that's what I
thematic
just
tech
referred
track.
to it in my head. It's not a like classical
Okay,
tech track.
Yeah, I was a little confused there. Yeah, this game is really neat. It's also with a minimum number of actions. You only get 3 a round, I believe, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah, there are 5 possible
Mhm.
actions, and you only get to do 3 per round.
I will say this game does tend to drag with people that are AP prone.
Yeah, that can be true.
It's
That
very.
can be true.
That's that's my only
It'll be bad with Brad.
hang up to playing this game when I do kind of see like, hey, who's playing? And
Look around.
If it's someone notoriously like gets hung up on AP, then I might sit this. You should play with 3. I think it's a little better at 3, right?
That was the other thing. It's a pretty different game at the player counts. Like a 3-player game is very different from a 5-player game, and then a 4-player game kind of meets in the middle of those two. A 3-player game is very, very different because it's much harder to get to the end of the track for the late model cars. David.
Man, I got.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you were gonna say something?
Oh yeah, man! Our last 4 games have all been brutal. Freaking Automobile, Age of Steam, Spirit Island, and Dungeon Lords. Don't mess up your first turn because you'll be paying for it the entire game. It's a big thing going on here.
Right.
I kind of wanted to.
Yeah, that could be a strike against the game. Like if you screw up too hard, then you screw up the first 20% of the game. You're spending the last 80% paying for your mistake. That can't happen.
At least in Spirit Islands, you got your teammates to hold you up, or at least to make fun of you as you crash and burn and everyone loses. But anyway, I was thinking about changing my list real quick and adding brass to show both of you and Joss what a real Mario
really?
game is. But I'm gonna refrain from that and stick to my list and continue with the heavy theme and probably I don't know. Well, my number 1 is my favorite. Number 2 and 1 are both actually pretty heavy for me. But I debate on this a lot. It's which one's my number 1. It goes back and forth between these 2 games. But today I've chosen Gaia Project as my number 2. And if you don't know what Gaia Project is, it's Terra Mystica.
Your number 1, Terra Mystica.
That pretty much explains it all.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it? No. I like Gaia Project much more than Terra Mystica. Personally, it's just more involved, more interesting, and there's more to do with the power track, which is the most unique part of the game. And as for a quick, I don't have time to explain Gaia Project or Terra Mystica, but it's essentially a place buildings on a map on a hex grid. The buildings will reveal like resource income, other things. You use those resources to go up tech to help you expand. Put the buildings down to give you more resources, and so on and so on. You spread out, and other players are doing the same, so there's a fight for space, and it's a very unique power system, which again would take way too long to explain, but it's a very fascinating and intricate part of the game, and that's mostly why I like God for 2 reasons. First is the tech track is much more interesting than the monk track in Terra Mystica, and in Gaia Project, there's way more things to do with the power system, which again is the most intrinsic part of the game. And part of the reason why I really like this game, it is a super heavy strategy game with no luck. There is no luck in the game other than the initial setup, unless you include luck to include your opponent's decisions as what they do or which spaces they take, to block you or anything like that. But there's no random.
In theory, like you could have accounted for that in the first place.
Possible, although they could always.
Right.
I don't know. There's better decisions than others. You can just loudly proclaim that if you wish. But yeah, as far as quote unquote pure strategy, no randomness. Everything is essentially deterministic if you can plan things out that far. it's one of the best. It's sprawling, expanding. You get a real sense of like building not a community, but like an empire or just kind of thing. All the powers in the game you choose from a bunch of different alien races. Their unique powers and abilities feel different, or advantages, I suppose. There's usually a variety of ways to play each one. There's just if you want a heavy strategy game with no randomness, this is the way to go. It's highly regarded for a reason, and I love it. It's Gaia Project.
Y'all are doing a great job of selling me on these games. Like, I'm very curious about a lot of these.
Well, the bad thing is you're gonna need like 3 hours for each of these games.
Okay, sure, but like I've done that before.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, like with Spirit Island.
Well, guys on my list, so if you want to play, I'll play with you.
Yay!
So we can get a day and play all these top fives, and then share our opinions of it later. That would be fun. Has anyone else played Gaia Project?
I played it. I really well. I kind of came a little late to the Gaia Project train. Like, I recognize it's a good design, but then like I never got really into it. I remember admiring the power system in the game, where if your building is next to someone else's building, and you upgrade your building, or you upgrade it next to someone's building, you get a power point from them.
No, if someone builds next to you, you can get power.
Well, yeah,
points. When you upgrade your building,
like Terra
you just get a cheaper. You get a discount on upgrade.
Okay, but basically you place next to an opponent, and then the opponent gets something for it. And if they place it next to you, you get something for it. And I always really liked that interaction, because there's a certain like blocking elements to Gaia Project, but then they incentivize you to be next to each other too, and those like incremental like increases, those little advantages really add up throughout a whole game, and I thought that was like really a brilliant design. Like, I could really get boxed in here. Wait, but I want to be next to the other guy because you'll power me up. So it's a very like tempting, hard to balance sort of thing, because if you get boxed in, that game is not fun for you for however many hours you have left in it. I mean, yeah, that's just kind of how it goes down. I mean, Gaia Project definitely it's much harder to just completely box someone in, but that was definitely
that's part of it as well.
More of a Terra Mystica thing. Terra Mystica, you could get boxed in. Like, it's not that hard to box someone in if either player is not careful. Like, you just, okay, here we go. You're not going anywhere. Or it is prohibitively expensive to go anywhere. And it's like, okay. And done. You're done for the game.
Yep, continuing the themes of potentially brutal games. This is definitely one of them. It's a lot harder to essentially sabotage yourself. Like, if you do badly on the first couple turns, you're just not going to do as well in the future. You're going to have less resources and possibly less options. It's not like Dungeon Lords, where your entire dungeon is going to get conquered by a party of adventurers, and you just basically have no dungeon anymore. Yeah, super heavy strategy. I love Gaia Project. That's my number 2.
Cool. For my number 2, less heavy but still sci-fi, it's Not Alone. So this is, I like to describe it as a psychological thriller. There's this creature, this planet. So it's team-based. It's one person as the creature on this planet versus all the other players, for these sort of space explorers who've crash landed on the planet and are trying to essentially avoid the creature as best they can until they get rescued. Had a really, what I found, so David actually taught this game to me, or he just showed me like how this worked, and I immediately like, oh my god, I knew I wanted this, and I got it. Had a great time. So the idea is the different places on the planet the explorers can explore are represented by cards. They play a card from their hand, they play it face down, so all the explorers choose where they want to go. The alien chooses a place on the planet to hunt and look for them. Explorers flip their card face up. We see what happens. Cool things happen. Cool. That's the core of the game. If you really like that sort of psychological aspect, this game is like tapped into it so well. And then on the sort of design aspect, it's a very rare game in that it works. It plays 2 to 7 players and works well at every single number.
Yeah,
it's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Pretty mind-boggling.
That's very rare.
But
That's very rare.
Yeah.
I mean, what, Seven Wonders does that? Maybe. It's arguable because I don't think it works at 2 players.
Seven Wonders does not do 2.
It does not work on 2.
Some are not.
But yeah.
Also, if you want to get into that, I don't think Seven Wonders works at 7.
Really?
But
Okay.
let's save that
All
for
right,
another time.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is definitely a game I've taught to sort of show people, or new gamers at least, the range of what board games can do. Like it's, people just have this preconception. It's one thing, you got some figures on a map or a board, and you just do this. And I'm like, here, let me show you something different. And yeah, this has always been a hit with people I've taught it to. There's only one aspect of it I think is a little not great. And what happens is, usually when I'm teaching, I'm the creature. And then as the creature, when you're playing, you're incentivized to go after one person at a time until you completely deplete their will, and then you get a double advancement. So then I've played the game, and some people like accuse me, hey, why do you keep targeting me? Why do you keep talking to me? I'm like, it's part of the game mechanic. I have to try to anticipate you the most, and they're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. So I'm like, I'm trying my best here. And once I explain it, most people are okay with it. But at first they're like, hey, man, why are you always just coming after me? I was like, well, you have the lowest will. And if I deplete it, I get a double advancement. That's what you're going to do, right? That's how you win the game. Like, okay.
That's the big thing for people who are unaware, is that once you explore a place, you can't revisit that same place until you get that card back in your hand in some way. Part of it is losing this willpower that Paul mentions, which helps the alien advance. Otherwise, you have to visit certain specific places to get cards back in your hand, but that then makes you a vulnerable target for the alien, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, it's neat because it encourages, like some of my other games, it encourages looking around not only at what the alien might think you're going to do, but what your fellow teammates have. So, like, if everyone but you has played location 4, the river, you might go, oh, that's a safe place to go, because the alien knows that everyone's played the river but you, and thus their odds of getting someone at the river is very, very low. But the alien knows that you know that everyone's played the river but you. And so on. It creates this kind of thing. It's like, why would you pick that? Only I could have gone there. It's like, yeah.
That's exactly why I went there. Right?
Yeah. Also another thing, just like Mamma Mia and Happy Salmon and a few other games mentioned earlier, it's so portable. The box is so tiny. It's really just a deck of cards and some tokens, and can be easily taken anywhere. And because it plays such a wide range, it's such a great game to just have at any point.
Oh, I also really like the cheat sheet, the player aid on this. They just lists out the phases, and you can just announce, okay, phase 1, okay, phase 2, phase 3, and it's just so clear and easy to learn for new players. So I'm like, this is really well designed, man. Oh, I also really like the table talk aspect. Like, the rules specifically just say, you're on the planet, you can say anything you want out loud, but obviously the planet's going to be able to hear you, so it's just a little thematic, and it plays into the mechanic, and I'm like, oh, this is really well thought out all around. Yeah, good pick.
I would say my next game kind of exemplifies one of my favorite things about board games, which is combos and making combos and comboing. Castles of Burgundy. It's a victory point salad game, I guess, from Stefan Feld, where there's the system that uses dice, where you don't actually roll the dice, for luck, because people usually use dice. But I mean, you do roll them, but then that just kind of like limits where you can choose tiles from. Every different kind of tile has a different kind of way that it scores or way that it does something. You're just trying to put those things in an order, or build them in an order in a way that gets the most points, I guess. And there's kind of different paths to take. Maybe some aren't as good as others, and it could be more balanced in that way. But in general, it feels very fun and balanced to like pull a tile that gives you an action, that gives you a tile that gives you a pull that gives you an action, and yeah, that's one of my faves.
It's certainly possibly Stefan Feld's best game.
Wow, that's quite a statement. Is that Feld's best game?
I would have to think so.
I'd be up there with Macau in that one for me.
Oh, Macau. I don't think Macau's as well received.
Oh, definitely not.
No, but I love it.
Okay. I mean, it has the Septagon rotating thing is pretty great.
Oh no, Macau's great, but we'll get to that later. The only knock here is that it's such a great game. It's a really good system. I love exactly what Josh is talking about with the combo ability and the buildings, how they really can snowball and give you this chain reaction kind of thing. The only downside is this is probably Feld's first attempt. I'm not sure if it's first, but he keeps trying to make dice rolling a thing, and there's a lot of mitigation in this game, but it takes time to get them if you're using it, and that can be a bit detrimental. But for the most part, it does work. I like the idea of it. I like the rolling the dice, and it kind of affects your decision space. So you can't just go into this game and be like, I'm going to do this exactly. You do kind of have to adjust to what your dice say, and there's enough mitigations so that you're not just totally shoehorned potentially, but you may not have an exact route. You have to really work with what you're given, but there's some decent options within that. However, with anything like with dice, it can really mess you over for no other reason than you just rolled badly.
Yeah, it's a bigger deal late in the round, right? There's 5 rounds in the game. There's obviously a lot of good choices early in the round, but once a bunch of tiles have been taken up late in the round, if you roll badly and you roll into a space that's empty, then that's
sure. Or if you only have a certain few things that you really must do, then yeah,
that's also true.
But at least part of that is you can say that that's part of the risk. Part of this game is risk reward. You can take the risk that you may roll badly, but the stuff you're doing is better, or you could take stuff that's not as useful for you, but now you have more variety just in case you roll badly. That's the only part about the game I don't really like. I don't like playing towards that kind of luck, but it's not nearly enough of a knock to make me dislike the game. This is also one of my favorite games. I'm always willing to play it. It's a lot of fun.
Is it just me, or do you have a lot of favorite games, dude?
At least 5.
Yeah,
at least 5.
Yeah, we should do. Yeah, we should do my top 100 would be very hard to parse out, but there would be 100 games.
Okay. Castles of Burgundy. I kind of had an up and down relationship with this game. I didn't like it at first. Then I kind of liked it more as I played it more, and now I've kind of reached a fairly neutral spot. The one thing about it that I think is a little scripted is that you get a map. Your map has certain 5 types of regions, 6 types of regions, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think in order to be competitive, you have to do the tile type that has the most tiles in it. So what I mean by that is that you're not going to fill the whole map. There's just no way to fill the entire map with tiles. So you have to some extent, pick and choose which tiles you're going to go for, and you're incentivized to complete it, like hit every region of that type, so that you can collect the end bonus for it. And you're incentivized to do it first, because that gives you the most points. But when you complete a region, you get the triangular score for how big the region is. So the region's 1, you get 1 point. But if the region's 2, you get 3 points. If the region is 5, you get 15 points, right?
Sure, yeah. So you want the big one.
I don't believe it's
Yeah, it might
exactly
not be.
triangular.
I think it is triangular.
I'm not sure that. I mean, I see what you're saying. That you're saying you have to play the game in order to get these particular bonus points if you were
No, well,
running
you
for
have
the
to
win.
finish the region first, right? But I'm just saying you have to finish the bigger regions, because if you don't do it by the end, whoever does it, is going to score a lot of points just for the size of the region. So there are definitely maps that have variations. Like one is all like a big region of boats, water region. There's ones that are really big animal regions. There's ones that are really big the brown buildings region. And whatever is your biggest region, you have to do that. You can't not do that. If you don't, you're not going to be competitive against anyone else who does do that. That's just my experience with it. So I feel it's a little scripted in that way, but that's about it. I still like the game. I think it's a good design, but it seems like you have to do certain things.
Maybe you're right, but also I feel like in every game you have to do something.
Well, yeah.
Are we into round 1 now?
All right, round 1. My favorite game is Haunted Teutonica by Andreas Stedding, who happens to also be my favorite designer. He just has the most hits for me. And this was the first game I ever played of his, and it still holds up. It's from, 2009? I've seen so many different types of games of this, like high-scoring ones, low-scoring ones, and the forced interaction in it. The interaction in it really just, like, to really be good at the game, you have to understand the value of a fraction of an action, which is just crazy. And yeah, but the system as a whole is just not that hard to learn, but the interactions really just make it. That's my favorite game.
Speaking of games with no randomness.
Oh yeah, this has very little. Yeah, only the tokens that come out are the only random element in it. Right?
Yeah, that's right. And where they're placed is not random, but what they are exactly is the only
it's
thing.
the only thing that's random.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game. I like how it plays so differently, despite having the same rules and being, abstract strategy in a nutshell. How it plays so differently with the number of players. There's always a weird fight over the action space.
It's a weird fight.
Start of the round, start of the game. Yeah.
It's like musical chairs.
Do you want to get in line, or do you want to try to? Yeah. Do you want to get in line, or do you want to try to cut the line?
Yeah. It's like a phone booth fight in a phone booth. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to go? Come over here, cheat, get the express pass to the front, and then everyone's trying to clamor not to be the one that you push aside to get to the front, and then
I think this was the second game that has a good supply versus a bad supply. So basically a supply where your cubes are available to be placed on the board versus a bad supply, which you have to first transfer to the good supply in order to get your cubes out on the board.
Yeah, I think the originator of that was El Grande.
Oh, was it El Grande?
Probably.
Okay.
It's certainly the first one that I've heard of, and it's a very old game. But, maybe there's one weird example that's not very popular that someone can pull out and be like, yeah, this is the first. Be like, yeah, whatever, buddy.
I think the first game I saw it in was like Endeavor.
Oh, yeah.
And then this. And then Haunted Teutonica.
But anyway, as Haunted Teutonica goes, one thing I really love about this game is not only the just puzzliness of it, but I really like the board. I like how unlocking stuff not only gives you more powers, but it unlocks cubes off the board that you can then add to your supply. So you're encouraged to get the power-ups not just because you can do more stuff, but also the more you unlock, the more tokens you have, the bigger pool you have to spread out and do more things as well. And I thought that was a really neat system that is actually used more frequently now.
The power-ups are really big, is what I'm hearing.
I see it a lot more now, but at the time it was really, really interesting. If you like games with very little randomness, essentially abstract strategy game, multiplayer abstract strategy game for like more than 2, Haunted Teutonica is an excellent choice.
One day I'll play it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll teach any game that is on my list too. David, what's your number 1?
Well, my number one is in a tight knife fight with number 2 for my number 1 spot, but it won today. So congratulations to Through the Ages.
Hey,
Oh, okay.
My
that's
number
on my
one.
list too. That was my number one.
Hey, all right. All right, we have crossover. So, more specifically, Through the Ages, a new story of civilization, which took the original, basically streamlined it, and cleaned up a lot of messy rules.
Does that fix the military?
Fixed the military a little bit. I mean, military is still very important and probably the most prominent strategy, but it's definitely not nearly as dominant as it used to be. Looking at you, Napoleon. Anyway, it's got all the things that, like I said about Gaia Project, not the same mechanics, but the same heaviness, the same action space or decision space. But the thing that sets Through the Ages apart for me is the theme really shines through. It is a civilization building game, and as you go along, you really feel like you are building a civilization. If you expand your resource production, it comes through. If you expand your food, you'll get more people. That theme comes through. The leader you have, you pick a leader there's 3 eras in the game. You pick a leader for each one, usually, and each leader has unique power, and it really feels like that particular theme. It also shines through. But it is still a heavy Euro game. There's still a lot of resource collection, build up military, do this, do that. It's very possible to wreck your game. Once you wreck your game, you are very screwed. But unlike most games, there is a mechanic in this game to quit and leave and be out of the game. It is definitely in there mainly because if you are just dragging, you will just get pummeled relentlessly by people with military, and that doesn't feel good. So you can use the threat of leaving the game to get people to leave you alone.
You can use
It's
it
very
as a
true.
threat?
Yes, you can. I don't think it
Oh.
explicitly says that in the rules, but that is definitely a part of it.
I mean, that's a natural sort of meta thing, right?
Yeah.
But how does the
so
threat go? Like, what do the other players lose if you leave? Like,
they lose their cash cow. That's what they
Oh.
do. They don't lose anything. That won't affect them, essentially. Like, if you leave the game, they have what they have. But if your strategy is to take military and beat up on other people to steal their resources, or advance your technology, and the weakest person leaves, well, that just makes it harder to do.
it's very bad for you. Okay.
Yes,
Got
it is.
got it.
So you don't want to beat up, but that's kind of an initiative. That's not really important to the love of the game. It's just a super solid, super well thought out and thematic game that has lasted the test of time and is still my favorite game. It's Through the Ages.
I've never actually played this game.
Wow. Wait, I played a game that you haven't.
Oh, you've played Through the Ages?
I played
Okay,
Through
no.
the Ages.
I played. Well, it wasn't available when I first started, I guess, or nobody I knew had it. Was really the answer. And by the time I heard of it, like I kept hearing how it's like super long, so I never got into a game of it. And then what was it? A friend of ours had Nations, and he said, "Oh, this is just like Through the Ages, only easier."
Oh my god.
So I was like, "Really? Okay, I'll try this." And we played Nations, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if I like this game that much." And then from there, I never bothered trying Through the Ages.
No, that's like, hey, we don't need to get Through the Ages. We have Through the Ages at home.
Nations.
At home is Nations.
Nations I also like, but for different reasons. However,
True, same.
it's the same theme as Through the Ages, but it's not the same game by any means.
Is it similar? Or is it not similar?
I mean, it's a civ building game, but that's about it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's not similar.
The guy described it to me as like, oh, it's like Through the Ages, only like a lot easier. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean,
it's like running a country, but easier. No,
okay,
it's totally different.
Yeah, it's themed like Through the Ages, and it is easier, but definitely different.
Okay.
Although I have heard that as well. I think all Civ games kind of get lumped together in this way. But one of the unique things about Through the Ages is, although I guess this is true of Nations too, but most Civ games have a map. Most Civ games have an area which you build your civilization. You put little buildings on hexes and stuff like that. Through the Ages is all cards. the whole game. There's a card line, which was stolen in Friedman Fries's Copycat, interestingly enough. But it's a really cool system where the cards, each era is stacked on each other. So era 1 is before era 2, before era 3. Like the cards ramp up in power and complexity as you go through the eras. But you're going to go through all the era 1 cards before you get to era 2. And the way it works is it gets put on a timeline, essentially, which is just a long line of cards. And the cards earlier in the timeline cost less actions to pick up than the cards that just came out. However, no matter what you do, even if you don't take any cards, some of the cards will be removed from the front of the line each turn. So it's kind of like this interesting little thing where the cards you need are going to be coming up on the line, but you have to pick them up before they fall off.
And you've got to value them if your friend values it higher, and they'll buy it when it's further back on the track for more actions, then you're out of luck if you're waiting for it to get cheaper.
Yeah, there's that unique waiting game where you're like, I can take Napoleon at 2 actions here, but if I wait, he'll only be 1 on my next turn. But will he still be there on my next turn? That's the question.
It's about what, a 6-hour game, 8-hour. It can be 8-hour game, but it's.
I suppose maybe for people's first games, it should take about 45 minutes per player.
Really?
So yeah, so with 4, that's 3 hours. Although online, if you play it online or with other, there's a great app for it, by the way.
Okay.
If you don't have it, the app for Through the Ages is very well done. It teaches you the game. It's got solo mode, like challenges against the AI where you're handicapped, or there's some weird, like new mechanic, just kind of random to just spice it up a bit. It looks great too. It's very functional.
I think I played it on Board Game Arena, and a friend teach it to me. So that went pretty quick.
It's also on Board Game Arena. It's also on a website
called
really? Board Gaming-Online, which is an interesting website for a site, or a website name for a site that only plays Through the Ages. That's it. I played a lot of games on there because it's just like, well, Board Game Arena at the time didn't have a non-real-time mode. What do you call it? Turn-based mode, yeah. Asynchronous, where you could just kind of like almost email mode, where you can just take your turn anytime, and then once you take your turn, you just wait for the other person to take their turn, no matter how long it takes, or you can set a time limit. Board Gaming Online had that, and so I played a ton of games on there, also in person. It is a heavy game. It is very fiddly. If you ever had the first version of the game, it's actually a smaller than average box, but that box is a brick. It is packed full of the boards, the tokens, the cards, super compact. It was solid.
It had little glass beads that would roll off your
that was a great time.
No.
The first edition of the game is not very well designed in terms of pieces, but again, the new version is better. They really touched up what was some of the difficulties of the first game, or some of the brokenness of the first game. Because as a strategy game is played a lot, certain strategies may come up that are just way too good. They fixed most of those, or adjusted most of those. They added new stuff. There's even new expansions with new cards, new powers, new wonders, that kind of stuff. It's just got it all. If you want a civ building game, it's one of the best. If you want a heavy strategy game, it's one of the best. If you want a light, simple game, look somewhere else.
Does the expansion include modern day stuff? Is there a Facebook?
Sort of. I think Bill Gates is in the game.
Bill Gates is in the game?
Yeah. Stuff like that. I think Elvis Presley's in the game. Something like that. There's some modern references, yes. Not in the last 5 years or something, but...
Well, no, I wouldn't expect it to be that modern.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really up to date.
I mean, but they could. I think online, or especially on the Board Gaming Online website that I mentioned, they have experimental modes where they might have just stuff like fan-made stuff. I'm maybe wrong there, but anyway, yeah. Super fun, super thematic, super heavy. It's Through the Ages. My number 1.
Cool. My number one would be Great Western Trail. I think this is the first like big competitive like Euro heavy strategy game, etc. that I got into. And funnily enough, it wasn't. I had to play it twice to be convinced I actually wanted to buy it, which is funny.
Okay.
But then I did, and then there's a moment where it was just like I was just teaching it to all my friends. Everyone loved it. I just played it a lot. And what really fascinated me about it, right? Again, this is like my first big heavy one. It just felt so like, what the F? Like, how do you tell what's going on? Like, what's right? Or like, how do you tell like who's winning, who's doing well? It was just such a fascinating little mess, and how like little decisions would influence other people or nudge other people into doing certain things. Tolls come to mind for the most part, but even just building in general and how that like then sort of slows down the board because everyone's sort of moving along the same track. There's just so, and the game has felt so different that you could go a lot of different strategies, etc. It just felt it was mind-boggling, and yeah, really like it. I kept playing it. It's like one of the few games I feel like I understand very well at this point. So now it's like, right, sometimes you play new games, it's fun because it's just new and different, and this is one when I play it, I can really like dive into it, and that feels good too. And
I remember we had the hardest time scoring this game when we started playing it. Like, and then like I think it was like a year later they came out with the app for it, which would score it for you, and I was like, oh, okay, this app, this is great. Now this game is like, much better, and it would just use the app and just score it because there's just a lot of like intricate scoring in it. I'm like, oh, okay.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a great game. Really tough. I remember like I don't even know if I understand it well now, but I just remember the first 6 games of it I played, I did really, really badly, and I didn't realize like it was like my 6th game where I go, I think I understand what I'm supposed to do now. And usually it doesn't take that many games to like figure something out, even if it is a relatively heavy Euro. I'm like, for me in this game, I was like, oh, I think I understand what I'm supposed to do now. I still have trouble executing it, but like there are not that many games that like take that much of a learning curve.
Yeah, like that's just like I just had such a good time trying to figure this out with my friends. So they're saying just like, what's going on?
Like,
This is one of the games that was. There's so many rules that I missed. Going like
yeah, the first few times you played, right?
but,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much changes. It's really interesting, but yeah, the game endures. Especially the second edition, the new edition of the game, fixes most of the problems I had with the first one.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah, this is also on Board Game Arena now.
It is.
Yeah.
This is true. I especially love the mix of essentially deck building. Unlike deck building where you throw away your hand each turn, but you do have to craft your deck, but you're also crafting spaces or using the neutral spaces that allow you to use the cards in your deck so you can cycle around easier to the better cards that you've bought, and just the whole placement of the board and the way it changes. I really like how at first you can just kind of zip around and get right through, but as the game goes on, it affects the layout of the board and makes it longer. And that's a mechanic you don't see too often. There are a few games where you can add tiles to the board, but there's very few or adjust the tiles on the board, but there's very few that you essentially build a trail as you play the game, which is right in the title. But it's one of the cooler aspects of it for me.
This was the first game I played where I realized you can overcall your deck. So there's a mechanic in it where if you trash cards, like take them out of your deck, you have to move your train backwards. And moving your train like along the train track is so important that you can actually it can be strategically wrong to overcall your deck, and I really admired that aspect of it. Because, everyone's played Dominion, and one of the sort of key things you do is you cull your deck until you can consistently buy provinces every turn. I'm like, oh, wait, you can do it wrong in this game. Oh, interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because you can't really overcall, or no one's gonna make the mistake of overcalling your own deck in Dominion, but you can make that mistake in this game, or at the very least, you can do it to a point where you still lose. Because even if you're getting your best hand out, if you can't deal with the situation on the board, then somebody else can just still beat you. And I was like, oh, okay, that's a really I like that the idea of culling your deck is not an obvious question, or not. There's no obvious answer to it. You have to kind of figure it out, and you can overdo it, and you could definitely underdo it. So
Yeah. In fact, they buffed that action in the second edition.
oh, okay.
You got a little extra reward as a result for doing it too.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, I was like, man, there's a couple of points where you can strategically call and go backwards and slide into a station to get your markers out. But in general, other than that, I generally didn't call my deck very much, and I was like, oh, okay. But if they buffed it a little, then I guess I'm more incentivized to try it. So.
Yeah, just a lot of wonderful little nuances. I really liked it.
Joss, what's your number one?
Oh, I know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Through the ages.
Thanks for ruining my transition there.
Hours, but it's very engaging all the way through. And I won't choose another one. I'll just keep that one.
Well, you can talk about what you particularly liked about it.
I mean, I like that you're playing for 6 hours. You're engaged. You're it's the type of game where I've never played it 45 minutes per player. That's crazy. I'd love to. I mean, to be honest, I play most of my Through the Ages games with Brad, but
I definitely know people who only want to play this 2 or 3 players. Like they won't go more than
absolutely.
3. Yeah.
Hell no, I never played a 4-player, and I don't plan to. But if I play online, I didn't realize it was on Board Game Arena. If I play it online, if I play it with somebody who thinks it's 45 minutes per player, then maybe I'll do a 4-player game. I think the military used to be too powerful, but mostly I think it was just a bit confusing how the whole system, the military system, worked. Whereas everything else seemed a little more intuitive. I like the combo building, the kind of like the build up, like, oh, I can do this. It's basically like resource management, exploiting these cards and putting them together in the best way, including leaders and benefit, like one-time cards to like just squeeze the most, resources out of the game as you can. Kind of like real civilizations, I guess.
True that.
And yeah, so that's where I'm with that.
Yeah, I don't need to reiterate everything I said earlier, but that the confusing part you mentioned earlier brings up an interesting point, which is I actually feel like the changes they made from the first edition or the first version to the new Story Civilization is a good exercise in understanding game mechanics and how to fix them or how to change them or like avoiding confusing stuff. For example, especially for the military, there's a political phase, and you're allowed to play one political card. And in the first version of the game, you had to then discard all your cards or discard down to your political hand limit at that point. But what ended up happening a lot is that making that decision at that point led to a lot of confusion later because you have to predict what cards you needed or what cards you wanted to play during the main action phase without being there. And so the new edition just changed that to that you discard your political cards at the end of your turn. So you're not going like, oh, wait, I didn't want to discard that because I needed it for this, I forgot, or I didn't realize I had these things, and so I wanted that card back, kind of thing. It's just you have all your cards, so you can make all your decisions, and then at the end, you tidy up your hand. It's much better that way.
Yeah, it's great to have at the end too, because then people can start their next turn, and it's not this the whole decision you're making in the middle of your turn.
Yeah. Also, in terms of military is very strong, but you need these tactics. That's part of the political cards. You need tactics. The thing is, the tactics you get determine what kind of units you can have to get those bonuses, and is very important. And the original game, there were you just had to draw the tactics. They were kind of random from this deck. So if you never drew like any tactics, for example, then you wouldn't have any. You have a severe disadvantage in military. Or if you kept drawing tactics that didn't match the units you drafted, especially because sometimes you just have to get the stronger units in general. You're just out of luck. Your opponents could draw the tactics you needed and take advantage of that and run you over. Whereas in the new game, it's still the same problem technically of drawing the tactics, but if your opponents have a tactic, then you get to use that tactic a turn later, kind of like the transfer of technology, and thus your opponent will never have that. Well, they will get to use it first. They'll get initial advantage. They'll never have a tactic that you can't also take advantage of, thus nullifying any unfair advantage in that regard.
Oh, that's really good. I like that idea. Thematic. Yeah, that's also very thematic, like the proliferation of technology. Let me show you this big cannon. Oh wait, you have a cannon.
Oh.
That's a great solution to that problem. Is that the only crossover we have?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? All right.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly expected there to be more crossover, but not with me. But just in general.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we expanded to a top 10, I would have more crossovers with Andrew.
Okay.
Specifically, Spirit Island for sure. Maybe Not Alone.
Yeah.
Also, I kind of compacted with my number 5, which was Happy Salmon. That also kind of embodies things like Andrew's Letter Jam, but also I really like So Clover and Just One. I think those are excellent inclusive party games that are a lot of fun in so many situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I might have included Not Alone. I mean, that's, I think, my favorite one versus many game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of another one that I like better.
I was kind of surprised that no one picked, other than Andrew, no one picked Terraforming Mars.
Well, I think that game is hilariously overrated. So nope.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah, y'all know my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think Terraforming Mars has kind of gone to a. Now, mind you, I haven't learned all the expansions. I haven't played all the expansions, but just the base game, let's say, has gotten to a point where it's like there's nothing new to learn from this game. I mean, I still think it's fun, but like I've seen everything that game has to offer. And I'm like, okay, I'll play it once in a while, but I'm not in general looking to play it.
So you're saying that you haven't seen all that Tichu has to offer?
I've pretty much. Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
I bet you've played it like 1,000 times.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, that's more about like the variation in that comes more from each player than it does like what the game itself has to offer, and that's sort of built into the system, really.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
What other honorable mentions do people have?
For me, Magic Maze, Ex Libris, Everdell. Ex Libris mostly for the theme. I really like the theme. It's like a very like standard game, as a game, standard worker placement. But the theme is like so fun. Yeah, Magic Maze. I love the chaos from it.
Yeah, that one's a good one.
And Everdell, it's the Terraforming Mars replacement. And very good. I thought some of the dynamics and like the timing of the worker placement aspect were really well done.
Carson City for me and Homesteaders.
Oh, Carson City. Homesteaders.
So both.
Oh, that's one I haven't played, Homesteaders.
Oh, yeah, it's an auction game. It's a combo game.
I've seen it. I've wanted to try it, but just haven't been able to.
It'd be a little problematic because auction games,
Sure.
Concordia Venus, or Concordia in general.
Oh yeah, Concordia's great.
I would have said Dungeon Lords, Modern Art for the auction game, and maybe Codenames? Oh, Decrypto.
Also good, yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, and Anachrony. I really liked Anachrony.
You gotta bust that out more. I haven't played that since you're the only person I know that has it.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
You haven't played it since the last BGCon we went to?
No, didn't you bring it to a gathering once?
Oh, probably. I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
the box is pretty huge, so I don't move it around a lot. But I have brought it to a few.
I think I've played it with you like several years
together.
ago, like before the pandemic when you first got it. Yeah,
Like that fills out my top 10 list.
I could have put like Vladia Shvato's whole catalog in my top 10. I feel just all him.
Oh yeah. Oh man, Chivaro. Yeah, I really liked a lot of Andres Stedding stuff too.
Yeah, maybe we'll do our favorite designer deep dive at some point.
I cannot do that. I am very unfamiliar with designers. And like, I think my games are like pretty all over the place. The ones I do have.
Just check your top 10 list. See if you have one designer that's designed two of them, and there you go. That's your guy.
I think so far no.
No, every
What I
single
can
one's
tell.
unique. Okay.
It's good, Andrew, to know the designers because you could be like, I like this game. What, something else they might build.
What else does this guy make? Yeah.
No, yeah, I understand. And like Vlada is actually one I do recognize somewhat through Codenames and Tosh Kalar, which are very different games that I both enjoy.
Yeah, he makes really different stuff. I think he's the designer that makes the most different stuff. Like every other designer, you can kind of feel like, oh, this is a Feld game. I got it. Like this feels like a Feld game, or Knizia. This feels like a Knizia game. I get it. Even Andreas Stedding, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. This feels like a Stedding game, but Chavato, like his games feel so different. The guy doesn't have like one mode or one style. The games are just so different.
Did he make Lords of Zidit too? Was that him or was that?
He did not. No.
Chavato made Galaxy Trucker. He made
Space Alert.
Bunny Moose. Yeah,
That,
Space Alert. Oh, Space Alert. Well, those are like extremely different, right?
It's my favorite thing about him.
Yeah, like he went from Through the Ages to Codenames. I mean, come on.
That's a wide range.
With everything in between. Space Alert is generally considered to be the first like app game, even though it technically didn't have an app. It came with a CD, although that CD is now an app. So you had to play like a CD track that gave instructions like during the game.
Cute.
Yeah, that's such a better thing because you needed an audio component and you needed a timer. And
well, no, you didn't need a timer. The track itself was the timer.
Really? Doesn't the CD play for like what 5 or 10 minutes or something, and that's the time you have to get everything down?
Yeah, it does, but not that long. It's like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, something like that.
Oh,
and there were even parts of the CD where it was static because you're not supposed to talk during that point.
Well, yeah, that's. I thought that was thematically genius.
Yeah, it was. They did a lot of cool stuff, and even without an app, it just had a CD player with different tracks. But app style game. He also did Mage Knight.
Yeah, Mage Knight. Oh, I don't
for me, it's the best.
Wow.
For me, it's the best. Like explore around, get stronger, kill the final boss style game.
That's a very cool one.
I believe we call those adventure games. I remember that's the most Euro adventure game I've ever played.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
He also made a game called Prophecy, which to me is just the early version of
Mage Knight. Yeah.
Yeah, he revamped Prophecy and made it into Mage Knight.
The Talisman Killer. The Talisman kind of has this weird like fan base, and they're like, just try Mage Knight, or sorry, just try Prophecy. I think you'll like it a lot better.
Prophecy's way better than Talisman.
Yeah.
Honestly, Talisman killed itself. It's just not very good.
It has a point of nostalgia for it. So.
What else did he do? Of course, Codenames. But yeah, every time. I mean, Vladi hasn't made much recently other than Codenames spin-offs.
I don't even know if that's him making them, right? Once you have the framework for how to make Codenames.
Every time I've seen his name on something, I get excited. I'm interested. Even like Bunny Moose, which wasn't that successful to me, was at least interesting. It was different. I don't know what he's working on now. I heard he's working on some kind of like legacy style game based on one of his earlier works. But all that tells me is all that tells me is legacy game, because based on one of his earlier works, it's just way
Yeah.
too broad
Yeah.
to be like.
Wow.
Is it like Legacy Galaxy Trucker? Is it like Legacy Dungeon Lords? It's Dungeon Pets. Is it Legacy that? They're so different. Dungeon Lords and Dungeon Pets have the same style theme, same universe,
Very
but they're
different.
such different games.
I remember, what was it? They also made a re-implementation of Mage Knight with a Star Trek theme, right?
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, they did. I think it's called like Ascendancy.
No,
maybe,
it's
or-
not Ascendancy. It's something else. It
Oh,
might be
okay. That's the other
Expeditions
one.
or something.
Oh, I forgot Pictomania.
Oh, Pictomania.
Pictomania is one of my
Drawing
favorite.
game?
I feel like it's
Yeah.
one of the most underrated games. Yeah.
Is it underrated? I thought it was really well received.
I believe it is, but I don't think a lot of people
Oh.
have heard of it.
I think that's just because it's a drawing game. I don't, they're just people who are not drawn to drawing games.
Oh, really? Yeah, I see what you did there.
All right, so that's our top 5 list. You could definitely supply comments and reviews of our top 5 list. See which host that the listeners gravitate towards, and it'll matter when we start reviewing games.
Okay, here we are at our game show segment. I've sent each player a list of games that I own on Board Game Geek. And here's how the game's going to go. I'm going to read flavor text from a game. And if it's your turn, you're going to get the first guess to the question will be amongst the games in my collection. If you get it wrong, the next player will get a chance to steal for less points. And the next person after that will get a shot if the first 2 players get it wrong. So if you get on first guess, it's worth 5 points. If you get it on as a second guess, you get 3. And if you get it as a third guess, you'll get 2 points. Everybody ready?
Yep.
Sure.
I'm kind of ready. What the heck is Power?
I don't know what you're talking about. What Power?
You don't know your own game list? There's a game here from 1981 called Power.
I do know what that game is.
It looks like it's about running a TV station. Oh, there's planes and
I didn't realize you were referring to a game from my collection.
yeah, Power.
Just the word power is not terribly descriptive.
Well, you could have described what Power is. Anyway, I'm ready. Let's go.
David, you're going to be up first.
Sure.
What is courage?
Courage?
No, I'm just kidding. Continue.
Did you miss it when he was making fun of you about miniature?
Yes, I did. Please explain.
Miniature is just a small part of that game, right?
Oh, I did miss that.
Now I get it.
David, here's your first game. Your task is to recover and analyze a novel kind of crystal, as well as to conduct further research. You have been granted a limited amount of time in the station. In order to succeed at your mission, you will be provided with access to the latest models of research bots. Program these bots accordingly to the task at hand and use them efficiently in the various sectors of the station. David, you have 20 seconds.
Oh, 20 seconds to look through 117 games? Thank you.
No, you're supposed to know the game based on the clues given in the flavor text. That's what the whole game is.
Oh, got it. Just a clue. All right, let me know when I have 1 second left and I'll throw something out there.
10 seconds, David.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just a clue, David.
Nice.
3, 2, 1.
Is it Star Trek Ascendancy?
Nope.
Damn it.
Andrew,
Yeah.
I'm going to read the quote one more time for you.
Cool.
Your task is to recover and analyze a novel kind of crystal, as well as to conduct further research. You have been granted a limited amount of time in the station. In order to succeed at your mission, you will be provided with access to the latest models of research bots. Program these bots accordingly to the task at hand and use them efficiently in the various sectors of the station. You have 20 seconds.
I don't need the time. My guess is Aquasphere.
That's correct. That's Andrew for 3 points.
They don't mention octopuses in the description?
I told you these are excerpts from the flavor text. I didn't put anything too obvious in them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. How do you like that game?
Yeah, I think it's all right. It's a little dry overall, but if you're into the system, and it's very puzzle solving, right? You're essentially trying to solve this puzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty heavy game, and you're working with very limited resources to actually get things done.
Yeah, I think I played it once and was like, whoa, I'm not used to programming style.
Yeah, it was very dry, very puzzly. Didn't really hit the mark for me.
It's very do it right, or you're dragging the whole game.
Pretty much. All right, Andrew, you're up next. Ready?
All right, yeah, let's go.
Since its inception in 2174, the world government has continually strived for global unity and peace. Our mission is to be humanity's shared tool for shaping a better future. Earth is overpopulated and resources are dwindling. We now face the choice either to recede or to expand into space and find new homes for humanity. You have 20 seconds.
All right. So I feel like the 2174 thing is probably I'm leaning towards Star Trek because of that. I'm not making a guess yet. I'm not committing. Just
10 seconds,
dialogue.
Andrew. 10 seconds.
But I don't know it. I don't know. I feel like that year could... Okay, so I'm debating between that. It's something sci-fi. It's probably... I'm going to guess Alien Frontiers.
That's not correct.
Solid guess. Thank you for getting rid of that one for me. I'm listening.
Joss, you're second. I'm going to read the description one more time for you.
All right.
Since its inception in 2174, the world government has continually strived for global unity and peace. Our mission is to be humanity's shared tool for shaping a better future. Earth is overpopulated and resources are dwindling. We now face the choice either to recede or to expand into space and find new homes for humanity. You have 20 seconds.
It's definitely the game that I just saw on this list. Let me find it. The one that wasn't Alien Frontiers. Oh, I definitely should have kept that in my head. Merchant of Venus.
Nope, that's not correct.
Gosh, damn it.
David.
I'm gonna guess Star Trek Ascendancy.
I'm sorry, David, that's also not correct.
Oh, wow, okay.
Damn it.
The correct answer was Terraforming Mars.
Um,
Oh, that was my second guess.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
I thought Star Trek Ascendancy would be way funnier.
I thought the Earth overpopulated kind of gave it away in that, you're terraforming Mars, a new planet kind of thing, but what do I know?
It is about that, yeah.
okay, I thought Terraforming Mars was just about corporations getting richer, so it wasn't like...
This is propaganda for them. They're humanity's shared tool. This is good PR, Andrew, and that's a part of business. Here we go. Here we go. Joss, you're going to be first here. You ready?
Yes.
The planet was once the home of an alien race, and they left behind a wondrous artifact in orbit. Using your fleet to explore the artifact, you will discover amazing alien technologies that you can use to advance your cause. Winning the game will require careful consideration as you assign your fleets to integrate the alien technology and territory bonuses into your expansion plans. 20 seconds.
I'm gonna say Alien Frontiers.
That's correct.
Hey!
All right, that's 5 points.
Oh, I thought it was Star Trek Ascendancy.
You always do.
It's gonna be right one of these times.
You have only gone with sci-fi stuff.
After round 1, Joss is at 5 points, Andrew's at 3 points, and Dave's bringing up the rear.
With how many points?
0 points. Bring up the rear with a nice bagel.
All right. I strongly feel I can ascend from this position.
It's not golf scoring.
David, back around to you. You ready?
I think so. Is it Star Trek? Okay, go on.
Cluster 5632 requesting removal of Rostor sanctioned protocols and immediate construction of galactic base. Rebuilding of war-torn sectors has begun. Whereabouts of friendly civilizations unknown. Need aid in establishing trade routes between isolated cultures. Repeat, Rostor invasion has been put down. Cluster is ready for trade. End transmission. You have 20 seconds.
Well, I know what I want to say.
Yeah, I know, right?
If they had said Captain's Log in front of it, it would have been perfect. But no.
Sounds like Star Trek Ascendancy to me.
I think I'll go with the obvious choice, which is Merchant of Venus.
That's correct. Dave's on the board for 5 points.
Yay!
A lot of spacey themes going on here. Like,
Yeah, what's up with your collection? It's just shot into space.
I wanted the first round to have a common thing, but I was really just looking for whichever ones had clues but wasn't too obvious. So a lot of them were the space ones. Okay, moving on. Andrew, you're up.
Okay.
As building begins, it's clear that the promise of great riches has attracted the very best designs. Some have clearly been tempted to carry favor with the figures of the underworld. There are widespread rumors of midnight meetings and secret forbidden rituals. And now, amulets and hieroglyphs honoring the gods are appearing in strange places inside the new construction. Will temptation drive you to the worshippers of the gods and to a violent end? 20 seconds.
So it sounds like something new. Cool. But now what? Now what? All right. I'm looking at.
10 seconds.
Is it cheating to look at the things, to click on the links? All right. This is gonna probably feel silly. I'm gonna go with Kemet.
Nope. I guess it would be cheating, but you would have to read through the whole description because I didn't pull them from the beginning necessarily. So, and I actually pulled them from the rule books. I don't know if they're the same as the descriptions on the thing. All right. Joss, you're up second. You ready?
oh, I'm ready.
Oh, I feel silly.
If you want to just make a guess, you don't need to. I don't have to read it again.
All right, give it to me again.
As building begins, it's clear the promise of great riches has attracted the very best designs. Some have clearly been tempted to carry favor with the figures of the underworld. There are widespread rumors of midnight meetings and secret forbidden rituals.
I'm gonna say Illuminati.
Okay, no, that's not correct.
Okay, what you just said is perfectly Illuminati, but I hear you.
Very Illuminati, except for building stuff. They don't.
I didn't, write the flavor text. Okay, David, get one last shot.
Oh, please read it again. No, I'm just kidding. Is it Cleopatra and the Society of Architects?
That's correct for 2 points.
Yeah, there's corruption in that game. You can instantly lose. Well, instantly lose at the end.
Okay, Joss, you're up next for the first guess. As a consequence of food production increase to support the growth in population, cheap cotton imports increasingly replace linen and raising sheep gained importance. When European wine and brandy production was ravaged by plagues of insects in the 19th century, Scotch whiskey was drafted as the substitute for cognac. The whiskey industry exploded into life, turning it into a premium alcohol beverage in Europe. 20 seconds.
Okay, I'm gonna say Clans of Caledonia.
5 points for Jaws. Okay.
Hey,
Hey.
did you say a plague of incest? I don't remember that part.
A plague of insects.
Got it. I love that game, by the way.
Yeah, I like that game too.
Great game, yeah.
So at the end of the second round, we have David with 7 points, Andrew with 3 points, Joss with 10 points. Round 3. This is round 3 and the final round, assuming there are no ties. Each player commands a colony on a distant planet. Players build and expand their rival colonies by purchasing factories, operating them with human colonists or robots to produce resources, and using these resources to purchase upgrades to make their colonies more efficient and successful. You have 20 seconds.
It's another sci-fi game.
I know. Is it time?
Do I just do it? Yeah, I think it is. Ascendancy. That's how you
10
ascend
seconds.
with factories and stuff, right? This better not be like StarCraft Brood War expansion or something. All StarCraft, right?
3, 2, 1. Your guess?
Is it StarCraft?
No, it's not.
Wow, I was gonna guess that. All right, weird.
I think it's gonna be Star Trek again.
Okay, sorry. I guess I didn't say that. None of the they're not expansions. None of the answers are expansions. So no, I wouldn't have done something that dumb or shitty.
I would be shocked if Paul did
Okay.
pulled something like that.
Okay.
All right, Andrew, Each player commands a colony on a distant planet. Players build and expand their rival colonies by purchasing factories, operating them with human colonists or robots to produce resources, and using these resources to purchase upgrades to make their colonies more efficient and successful. 20 seconds.
Seems like it would be very obvious.
You'd think, given all the things, yeah.
Well, I think it's obvious now, but I guess something else.
10 seconds, Andrew.
Okay, I do have S. I'm gonna say it's Outpost.
Outpost is correct. Andrew for 3 points.
I saw it a little too late. The picture for Outpost is just like 10 cards with numbers on them.
Yeah, I was noting the pictures on this page here are really odd. Like, for instance, Seven Wonders, it's just this picture of some, like, cosplaying lady.
It's funnier this way.
Yeah, well, it's got the box in it in the lower right there.
Do you guys know how to change that? Because you can have it just list in the top left-hand corner of the Board Game Geek site. Like my personal collection, I put in the pictures I thought were the funniest. And I thought the cosplay was pretty funny, so I put a bunch of those as custom icons for when I have the game.
You really went to that much effort to zhuzh up your collection.
I was playing around with the site, and I did it when my collection was pretty small. Now, if you look, most of the games don't have custom images or anything, so yeah, that's what that was. Andrew, here is yours. Okay. The Tontine, it's spelled Tontine, the Tontine, an age-old investment scheme. Just buy a ticket to participate and you can make millions. Countless entry fees are pooled and invested in an account where the gain is significant interest. After years of accrual, the last surviving ticket holder ends up claiming a fortune. Nice fairy tale, but tontines are illegal for a reason. It's the same reason they've been so famously featured in dime store pulp fiction novels. They have a tendency to lead to murder. 20 seconds.
I thought I had an idea, and then the last half of that flavor text was like, what? I think I'm still gonna stick with my
10 seconds, Andrew.
gut feel of Ponzi scheme.
No, that's not correct.
Yeah, I don't know what the game this is, but it's intense and I want to play it.
I need you to read it to me clearly.
The Tontine, it's spelled Tontine, the Tontine, an age-old investment scheme. Just buy a ticket to participate and you can make millions. Countless entry fees are pooled and invested in an account where the gain is significant interest. After years of accrual, the last surviving ticket holder ends up claiming a fortune. Nice fairy tale, but tontines are illegal for a reason. It's the same reason they've been so famously featured in dime store pulp fiction novels. They have a tendency to lead to murder. 20 seconds.
Oh shit! What the hell? Oh man, this is tricky. I'm feeling.
10 seconds.
I'm feeling Clue, but it's not Clue. Save Dr. Lucky.
No, it's not Kill Dr. Lucky. David, you get the last guess.
Lovely.
Do you need me to read it again? Let's just go through the motions, I guess. The Tontine, it's spelled Tontine, the Tontine, an age-old investment scheme. Just buy a ticket to participate and you can make millions. Countless entry fees are pooled and invested in an account where the gain is significant interest. After years of accrual, the last surviving ticket holder ends up claiming a fortune. Nice fairy tale, but tontines are illegal for a reason. It's the same reason they've been so famously featured in dime store pulp fiction novels. They have a tendency to lead to murder. 20 seconds.
I bet it's Star Trek Ascendancy.
Don't remember that episode, but it could have been
10
based
seconds.
on that like the whole time. Yeah, right? I mean, I'm starting to feel like this is what was I gonna say? Oh, I had a funny one.
3,
Oh, it sounds like
2,
Squid Game. That's what it is.
1.
I'm gonna guess conspiracy.
That's not correct.
I didn't think so, but I don't know what's in that suitcase. Could have been the ticket.
The correct answer is Dead Last.
Really?
Have you guys played that game?
I have, and That's not the theme I thought it was.
You know what? The game was originally titled Tontine. That's why they keep using that word.
Joss, you ready for yours?
I'm ready.
And so you begin your grand design, starting with nothing but your brains, an empty shell of a building, and your fortune. You soon discover that wasn't enough. Local construction resources are limited, and you now find yourself bidding against your friends to get those resources. The competition is fierce, and the stakes are high. 20 seconds.
Construction resources makes me think of Firenze because they're building shit, I think. I'm going to go with...
10 seconds.
All right. I mean, it's not taboo. Hack and stack. I'm going to say Firenze.
It's not Firenze.
Yay, he didn't skunk us.
Okay, David.
Yes.
And so you begin your grand design, starting with nothing but your brains, an empty shell of a building, and your fortune. You soon discover that wasn't enough. Local construction resources are limited, and you now find yourself bidding against your friends to get those resources. The competition is fierce, and the stakes are high. You have 20 seconds.
Heron Tortoise.
It's not correct. Okay. Andrew, you get the last guess. And so you begin your grand design, starting with nothing but your brains, an empty shell of a building, and your fortune. You soon discover that wasn't enough. Local construction resources are limited, and you now find yourself bidding against your friends to get those resources. The competition is fierce, and the stakes are high. 20 seconds.
I'm going to say Carpe Diem.
It's not correct.
All right, is it Power Grid Factory Manager?
The correct answer is Vegas Showdown.
Whoa.
Vegas Showdown.
I guess that would be a weird way to start with an empty building and a fortune.
Empty building and a fortune were your only real clues there. Okay, after 3 rounds, Josh wins it with 10 points. David has 7,
Big 7.
and Andrew has 6. Good job, guys.
Yeah, high five. We beat him.
And that brings us to the end of episode 1. I hope everyone enjoyed our Fun with Flavor Text game show. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to continue the conversation with us, you can do that at our Board Game Geek Guild Impromptu Board Gaming Podcast, guild number 4233. Or if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for the show, please email us at impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word, impromptuboardgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.